Greg, this is probably something that I should be doing off air in private leadership meetings. But I haven't asked anybody who works here how they think Chris Cody, your son, has been doing in the executive producer job. I'd like to do that now because of something that just happened that made me like sort of shake with how different the leadership is around here now that he's been asserting his role. How do you guys feel, Roy, about how Chris Cody is doing, being in charge, trying to grow into the role of Meadowlark executive?
Oh, very well. I thought it was
explains
more to that question, actually.
okay?
I know you're going to put more of a context to that question, but I think he's doing very well.
That was quite the hesitation.
That silence was
Pregnant pause there.
lasted 20 minutes for me.
Roy, I don't know what's happened with you lately, but recently, okay, even when I'm starting a sentence with Roy, and then there's a sentence, your genuine surprise that I'm going to you leaves you in a position where it seems like
You said my name, Dan.
you have no idea what to say. And it's the opposite of what the job is when I start a sentence with Roy, XYZ.
No.
Like all you have to do is be ready for whatever that moment is. And it's rarely, I don't do this with anybody else. I'm not going around, Billy, and then this. I'm just looking at Billy. With you, I'm going directly at you, and you seem like you're not ready.
No, I knew you were going to me because you said my name. But I was expecting more to the question. And I was listening to the question like, there's nothing more to this. Okay, I better answer this now.
In fairness, like Roy probably didn't wake up thinking he was going to be doing employee reviews for his coworkers.
Yeah.
That is a good point by you. But the reason I'm bringing it up, the reason is Greg didn't even hear this. As the door closed to whatever Monday promises, the last thing that Chris Cody, leader, said into the room was, also, I'm starting the show with a sleep farting song. That's the last thing I heard from your son's leadership. He said he was scared the first 6 months doing this, but now he's eased into the role.
That's leadership.
Thank you, Dad.
No, it is. You know, I mean, sleep farting was brought up last week. He immediately got a song. That's a beauty.
Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls better tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We can't go on, man, forget my peace. You take the west, I'll take on the east. I'ma put them in the cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Man so tough, but man's keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls, better tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch me, please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
There have been some bad days for your wife, huh?
Yes, agreed. I've learned recently that I'm a sleep farter. I didn't know that because I'm a sleep farter.
He does a good job of eating for his blood type. He loves cheese fries, but he can't have them now. He's got a good wife stuck in his Dutch oven. He's got them bad boys ripping all night. Dennis sleep farting. Yeah, he's sleep farting.
We have to be more mature than this.
No, we don't.
We can't be funneling funds musically to that. That can't be what we're doing with the media money. I want to ask Greg Cody because I'm thrilled that he's here. I'm always happy to see Greg Cody, lifelong friend, one of the longest friends I've had. Do not have many people like this in my life that have endured this long. He is a longtime journalist hanging on to the end of newspapers and the end of his longtime career, one of the longest in the history of the market. Why are you laughing?
Just, the whole idea of me hanging on, by my fingernails. I'm over a ledge, but I'm clawing to keep from falling.
Okay, so tell me how I have it wrong, because I want to have a media conversation with you as the media continues to change. And Ben Reiter is over here for CBS saying Giannis Antetokounmpo is interested in the Miami Heat and watching the Miami Heat situation. And over here, Udonis Haslem is saying on television, come summertime, Kevin Durant is leaving Phoenix. Reporting is changing. Information is changing. The way that people dissect it and who they give credibility to is changing. And I saw over the weekend that Mike Ryan broke the University of Miami basketball story. And I want to talk about changing media in your time, Greg, because there are very few information brokers out there whose information you feel like you can trust. I can name them, right? They're the handful of insiders where you're like, yeah, okay, I can believe that. But I don't know what to believe anymore. Is Ben Reiter credible? Because he is to me.
Yeah, he's been around for several years.
I know, but what are the measurements? If we're discrediting so much media, we're doing it larger outside of sports. But you assume Udonis Haslem knows what he's talking about if he goes on First Take and tells you Kevin Durant is out. He's not Kendrick Perkins. He's not opining to get clicks.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at the outside and say he might be. He's got his own content venture. He's never really broken stuff. Unlike Kendrick Perkins, there really isn't a resume that you can hold up his credibility. Ben Reiter has a certain credibility. I think you have to take all of that stuff into account. It's dicey, though, in today's day and age of aggregation where your name won't go on a tile half the time.
So, Greg, Mike Ryan has now been breaking stories in sports, Messi to Miami, and he's inside the University of Miami machine. And he's got a venture where he's an owner. So, like, there's business being done here. He also is a booster for the schools and doesn't have any journalism rules that he feels like he needs to be applying, right?
Oh, I do. When it's I like to correct people when they say I'm a journalist. No, I'm a media member. It's different. I don't necessarily have to adhere to the same type of rules because I'm a booster and I wear that conflict on my sleeve proudly. I will say, though, like, while I had something to do with the overall reporting of this story, this was reported by Peter Ariz from Kane's Insight. He was on this beat for several weeks saying that it was trending towards hiring Jay Lucas from Duke. When it came to the actual reporting of this, Kane's Insight followed every single journalistic protocol, went over and above, because there's sensitivities here with this specific hiring. Look, Duke and Miami still play this season. We're not to the ACC tournament yet. It's not often that you see this type of announcement when the other coach is on a staff that actually has title aspirations. So there's some sensitivities here, and we were well aware of that. It became apparently clear that this story was going to get reported. We had already sat on it for quite some time. This was non-invasive. We made sure that all the parties knew that this story was coming out when it was.
The reason that I bring all of this up, okay, it's inside the weeds on how you get your information, where you get your information. But before the show today, I heard the name Gary Furman.
The bag?
No, Billy, that's not helpful. It's not Gary the Bag. You know who the bag is. Don't pretend like you don't know who the bag is.
I don't know who Gary Furman is.
No, you don't
Insult to
know.
the bag.
You don't know who Gary Furman is, and I'm about to tell you who Gary Furman is, okay? Please find a photo of Gary Furman for me. Gary Furman comes from the golden age of the Miami Herald sports section when – am I wrong here when I say that Gary Furman was one of the chief writers on a staff that would have been considered the best in America?
No, you're not right. I've known Gary Furman for decades. He's been a real survivor in this market, doing a bunch of different stuff. He was never one of the top tier writers at the Miami Herald.
Okay.
I'm just being honest. And if Gary were right here, he would agree with me.
Okay.
But you were.
Yeah, forgive
Yes,
me.
still
All right,
am.
Let me.
Still continue to be.
Of course, the staff is only like 7 people now, but still, I'm the king of a small.
Are you
Kingdom.
Are you writing your own headlines?
Yes. Yeah, and my own cut lines. Yeah.
Honestly,
I'm doing all
though,
that
the
stuff.
fact that it was just someone's job to only do headlines, that probably could have always been.
That wasn't the only job.
Oh,
It
okay.
was also editorial judgment.
Oh, okay.
You good. You did good learning at your father's career. You've done good learning. Let me tell you about Gary Furman for a second, though, because what Greg just did, he caught me entirely off guard. You would agree that staff in general was among the best in America, yes?
Oh my gosh, there was about a 5-year period where we had Scott Price, Peter Richmond, Christine Brennan, Larry Dorman. It was an all-star staff.
Okay,
It really
these
was.
names aren't going to mean anything to people, but
Christine Brennan?
the part that I wasn't
Sell price.
the part that I was not expecting is for Greg to take out Gary Furman's career that way, because Gary was, for many years, one of the top 10 writers in a loaded sports section. You're calling him a second-tier sports writer. It's beside the point. What are you looking at me like that for?
I don't know what to say. I don't mean to criticize Gary Furman. He worked at the Herald for a number of years.
This is a credible person, is my
Yeah,
point. I want to
sure
make
it is,
I
yes.
want to make the journey from there to now on how news is being reported, because Gary Furman has pissed Mike Ryan off, and Gary Furman has more journalism bona fides, traditional journalism bona fides, than Mike Ryan does.
Yeah.
And Mike Ryan is working in a compromised position, but what I think Gary Furman has done for the last 20 years is one of the most compromised positions I've seen in the history of South Florida sports media.
Well, okay. We're here now. Well, what I didn't appreciate was Gary Furman saying that my company's reporting wasn't true, when it 100% is. And look, we've had 48 hours now for all the parties involved to deny that this is actually the case. It's not. Jay Lucas is going to be the next head coach. Gary Furman continues to push on Kane Sport that this story is not true. No offer is out there. But if you actually click the story, he even admits that he's doing the current athletic department a favor by not reporting this. So, like, the headline is clickbaity and it's going at someone's credibility. Who, like, when I actually put the journalism hat on, I'm not wrong. I'm very credible. You mentioned Messi. We mentioned we broke the Mario Cristobal story over here. I say I did that. But, like, my credibility, you don't call that into question. It's fine if you don't have the scoop, but to come out and say that it's untrue when I know how sound this is and I know what my resume suggests, I wasn't a fan of that.
No, and you're right. You have credentials. You're a true UM insider who has inside sources, and I trust what you say regarding Hurricane sports. But this is standard operating procedure in journalism. If you don't break a story, if you get beat on a story, you try to impinge the quality of the story that beat you.
That is true journalism?
That's the way journalism operates. And I'll use a perfect example here. This hiring is not official yet. Okay, so that's what you say if you get beat on the story. Okay, nobody on either side wants this story to come out right now because they don't want to interrupt Duke's March Madness run.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
that wasn't the report that this is that this hiring is official. The report was Miami has selected its next head coach of the men's basketball program. It's going to be Jay Lucas.
No, and that's 100% accurate. I was at the Inter-Miami game the other night sitting next to Michelle Kaufman, who covers about 3 different major beats for the Herald. She's in the middle of an Inter-Miami game texting Dan Radakovich and texting other sources about this story. And
revealing
sources,
her sources.
Oh, well, Radakovich is the Hurricanes athletic director. If you cover the Hurricanes, he's going to be one of your sources. So Radakovich, I'm not saying anything out of school. Radakovich essentially texts her back and says, but it hasn't happened yet. There's no deal in place, blah, 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 that kind of thing. So the story is real, but there are degrees. There are degrees of real.
Listen, Chris, this is what, Chris, you don't understand, okay, because you're so busy making sleep farting songs. You don't understand how to produce your father. And what has just happened is we have wandered, all of us together, into the glorious wheelhouse of Greg talking about journalism and the people in journalism and the end of newspapers and the end of information. You see it changing all over the place. And I am legitimately asking the audience, who are the people you actually trust on information? Because you're doing Kane Sport and Kane Insight. That's what we're talking about. You're talking about information, like how does an entity build the kinds of credibility that it needs so that it can be, in the new media age, something that competes beyond where the Miami Herald is, because you're serving an audience that trusts you to actually be informed. That the job is, the way the media is changing and sports information changes, I'm genuinely curious, people listening to this who love their college football information, why do you go to Kane Insight instead of Kane Sport?
Insight. Look, it was clear we had a very clear jump on this story. We had better information than anybody else. We often have better information than everybody else. And do we go into news breaking mode all the time? No. Our approach is let's really build our company on how plugged in we are. Sometimes it's not totally advantageous for us to be breaking news because we maintain our relationships. This became pretty evident to us, and I understand where Dane Redikovich is coming from because it's a little complicated if this gets out. It was going to come out. So, do you want some slapdick to report it? Or do you want to actually let the people that have known this story for 48 hours come out, non-invasively, make sure everybody's all right and go out there and do it? And that's what we decided for the better of our company, and we did everything right from a journalism standpoint.
Slapdick, underrated as an insult. I haven't heard it in a while.
He nailed it, though. The definition, according to Urban Dictionary, someone who doesn't know what the hell they are doing or what is going on, an idiot who never knows anything.
All right. So, I mean, slapdick, I just hadn't heard that in a really long time. And I don't even know what it actually means, even though he just defined it for me. Like, what is it, someone who is slapping? Like, what is, I know what an asswipe is. You call somebody an asswipe, I know what an asswipe
Coincidentally, the AP did report it about an hour after.
Well, see, that's the thing about news. That's the thing about breaking news. You can break it, but then it's immediately out there for everybody, and it's there for other news sites to shoot holes through.
It's so stupid.
It's up for everybody immediately vets it. Is it true? Is it not true?
It's so stupid. Who got it first? I knew it first.
Oh, it's crazy.
Well, what I don't like is the same thing that happened with the Cristobal stuff, which is, the main national writers like the Pete Thamels of the world. Even you can lump in a Gary Furman of the world. We confirmed this on multiple fronts, and they just go to the athletic department and say, hey, is this true? And you'll get an answer, which is like, yeah, kind of, but the timing's not right. It's not official yet. And they'll just run with that as opposed to, as first reported by Kane's Insight. Because now we're 48 hours into this thing. Nobody's denied this. This is the case. The reporting is sound.
Mm-hmm. This hasn't been confirmed yet.
You won't believe it until Furman's reported it?
He should have that. This story, confirmed.
It is a good move.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
That's a better way to handle it if you get beat on a story to come out. Look, there's another lane here. You don't have to be the first one. You could just come back, and then if you've confirmed it, then that story is solid. Because you saying the Associated Press then reported it an hour later. So it's basically just a bunch of people whispering in the information game, just whispering to each other, how do we do this? You want to do this correctly? I know it before you know it. Everyone, are we going to hold this? You don't want to hurt the program.
Don't want to hurt the program. Don't want to hurt Jay Lucas, who's got his life. You want to avoid what happened with John Shire press conference, which is facetiously or what have you, saying, well, this is the first that I'm hearing about it. There are sensitivities here that you understand, which is why you make sure you have all your loose ends tied up before you run with a story like
Can
this.
I stop you for just a second? And Billy, I don't know how interested you are in getting into the weeds on this because
I think you know.
You have this weekend. You again did something silently in the shadows because you do your journalism a little more quietly at FIU, and so I want to get into some of what you did quietly. Your last three events, you've gone with.
I thought you meant the news I broke.
Very little fanfare.
You don't even know because it was quiet news breaking.
Yes, we'll get to
it's FIU.
Tony described as dry.
It was super dry. Like ChatGPT wrote that tweet. Like Jesus Christ.
We've got
put some salsa. Put some sazon.
It's a dangerous game that I was playing because I was expecting a talking to when I got there. It's hard to break some news about someone that you're then going to go do a service for later in the day, you know?
Well, this is why I want to talk about the navigation of
Which
this.
they didn't tell me. So everyone knew but me.
The check cleared, though, right?
I don't think so.
That's not
Again, the silence.
that's
I
not
don't think
really.
I've gotten paid.
That's not really the journalism standard. Did the check clear? Is not the way some of this
For the
stuff
game,
is
no, for the game.
supposed to be done. But when you're navigating compromises, you guys do understand the difference in how we're doing all of this. When it sounded like Mike has carved out a position for himself where he can say, I have to do what's best for the program. And that's not compromised because he's only going to give you the information. He's going to have better information, but he's also going to serve in protection of the program. When he says, I can't break that and harm the program, Greg Cody could have and would have if he had gotten it.
No doubt. It is a different
Anyone
world.
with the Herald would.
Different standards.
Right.
And we wear the biases on our sleeve, and you can say that's not traditional media, traditional journalism, and you would be absolutely right. Don't necessarily pretend to. When we do venture out with a report, I like to think you take our credibility into account and you can parse through that stuff. But it does require more of the consumer.
Greg, if I can, as someone who has watched here in South Florida locally, what was the greatest of basketball times, Jim Larinaga, I was really wrong on him. I thought he was coming down here to retire. I thought he was old when he got here.
He
and
did.
I thought, yeah, but it took him a long time. It took him. I thought he was coming to take a cushy job at the end of his career, and he resuscitated something, and then at the very end tripped over the finish line. And what was enormous momentum, there cannot be a greater fall, I haven't been tracking all of college basketball, than where Miami was for that brief moment to what it is they are this season when you're like, oh my God, the wheels just blew off of everything
Without
there.
sanctions, it's hard to find a comp.
I mean, it's where you're just like, ooh, they took all of that momentum and did nothing with it. And not only that, they're now terrible. They're
Awful.
And so is this a good job? It's a rebuilding job. And what you've gotten is a coach who's a great recruiter, which right now is the game, right? Like it's the entirety of the game.
You got to have X's and O's. Larinaga succeeded at the very beginning of the NIL era. We brought in a lot of talent via transfer portal, and he had a lot of success with X's and O's with guys. Look, he did it with an all Big 12 point guard in Nigel Pack, but he also did it with a guy in Charlie Moore, who is just a national journeyman. I do think X's and O's matter. It's a delicate balance. And I think you can, in this upcoming hire, while Jay Lucas is a proven recruiter, you can question the X's and O's.
And that's fine, but it doesn't matter. Miami is now banking on you can question the X's and O's. And all of the places where it's investing and spending, Cristobal is, you can question the X's and O's. That's not what it's going to be about here. It's going to be about, can you buy yourself into the game? They just did. That Miami team a couple of years ago, it went further than any ever has. And when you're watching it, you're like, oh, that's championship good from the start of the season. You see it on the court. It's just so rare to have that fall apart the way that it did on Larinaga at the end. Billy, can we get to your sound from FIU? What did you do this weekend, and why do you continue to do these things so quietly?
This weekend, in terms of what? The FIU broadcast?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I also did some reporting. doing a reporting show today.
Well,
Big
Why are you mumbling?
rematch over. Well, because I don't know what we're doing. Big rematch. FIU is going to be hosting the University of Miami at Marlins Park again, or Lone Depot Park. This time at baseball, Dan.
A huge breaking story.
Yeah. Well, the last time they faced each other, FIU football defeated UM football 30-26.
And they've never gotten
24,
together since, and it was the most glorious moment in Paw history.
Yes, Panther history. Yeah,
Paws up.
it was a great moment. Unfortunately, they went on to lose. I think the 2 games that followed, and all momentum was lost. But for that night, what a magical night it was, and we're gonna relive that night.
We're not
March
doing,
4th,
but we're not
7 p.m. baseball.
We're not doing when FIU baseball plays against UM. We're just doing football and basketball, or had they not played in baseball since then either?
They play in baseball almost every year.
Okay,
yeah, just
yeah.
not at Lone Depot Park.
Okay, so
Former site of the Orange Bowl, historic land. I don't know if you know this, Dan. A lot of history happened at that site.
I want to break down Billy's tweet for a second because, again, I think ChatGPT wrote it.
I don't even know how to use ChatGPT. I'm authentic, bitch. That seemed unnecessary.
It really
No,
was.
it
I was gonna go
necessary.
baby, and then there was a late
OG
pivot there
over.
at the end, and I was like,
Yeah.
that didn't need
Got
to
caught
happen.
up in the air. It happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
You know, it happens. It happens. That's showbiz, baby. All right, so the issue is this, right? If we can find the tweet somewhere, Billy, you got to go breaking all caps.
Yeah.
Right. You
What
went
did I
breaking.
do?
You went breaking big B.
Yeah.
Everything else small. So you kind of read it quick, and it's like, oh, this is kind of boring. I don't care. The breaking news with all caps is like, whoa, wait a
Oh,
second.
so
what is
Tony,
this?
you're telling him he's got to put some spice on it.
Exactly.
He doesn't know how to properly.
I meant to put a picture in it too of the
Of
football
what would the
game.
picture be?
The picture was going to be the football game after you celebrating on the
baseball-
fields.
for a
Yeah,
baseball tweet?
Yeah, because that'd be funny.
Oh my God.
See, that would have given it some life.
Yeah,
All right,
some
so-
sazón completa.
So
Gracias.
did you get in trouble with anybody because you broke this news and they weren't prepared yet to have it broken as a baseball broadcaster for the team?
Well, I was broadcasting that's my first game. I was broadcasting for the game was that night. So I was like, is this going to cause a problem for me later on today? Like, may this be a situation where I arrive and they say, no, thank you, sir. You can go home now. What are you doing out there? Because they didn't tell me this information. Once I got there, I found out, obviously, this has been in the works for quite some time. And they all knew this was happening, minus me. No one told
Billy,
me.
but what
I
I'm
think
te-
for just this precise reason.
What I'm telling you is I can't believe that you can occupy a lane that I don't see being occupied by anyone in the sports information
I think
business.
George Richards does what I do.
No. Here's where
Gary Furman?
No, here's
bag.
it's not
Confirmed.
it's you very quietly, sheepishly breaking news by just giving.
Well, the story's not about me, Dan. The story's the story. You know what I mean? I just my service to society is just put the information out there for others to, absorb and potentially enjoy the information.
okay.
It's not about me. That's not what I did there.
Billy, no,
Just put it out there so
what-
people know.
Yeah, Billy.
Tickets available now, I think, maybe. I'm not sure. I didn't report on that portion of it.
Greg, are you not admiring? No one is taking the understated news breaking lane. Put the tweet up here so that Greg Cody can read the tweet. This reads on X like an
Yeah.
Associated Press
does.
report.
Yeah. Yes.
Like this is.
Well,
this
my
is-
Argentinian journalism teacher told me, don't make the story about you. Make the story
Right.
the story, and that's what I did.
That's a Tim Reynolds lead right there.
And there it
Whoa.
is.
Thank you.
Tim Reynolds
Thank
is
you.
the Associated Press. Why
Right.
are you taking out Tim Reynolds?
Yeah, what are we doing
no,
here?
Tim Reynolds is great, but AP is known for a very rudimentary, just the fact style.
Wow.
Rudimentary.
No, and
That was rudimentary.
Basic.
Also known for not calling things by their name.
okay, can I? The elephant in the room is this, and no offense to Billy, it's great to if you're covering FIU, it's great
I'm
to
not sure I'm
to
the one
break
you want to
that
start a war
news.
with.
Put it on the poll. Can it be a big story if it involves college baseball?
I mean, we
Okay.
just spent 20 minutes talking about college basketball.
I know, but college basketball is up here and baseball is down here.
Not in this
Especially
market.
FIU baseball's never been huge. UM baseball stopped being huge a few years ago and still trying to get back up.
So what should we talk about? The Lobos?
Well, I mean, that's an international brand.
A what
I don't-
brand?
An international brand. The Lobos, Greg's Lobos. No, it's a big story, but my ears perked because if UM and FIU are playing in football again at Marlins Park, it's like, wow,
Greg.
great story.
Greg,
Great break.
I understand. All right, look, I understand that you're the content king and you've got all the judgment about what we should be talking about
Correct.
in the local hour on a Monday.
Thank
but
you.
a University of Miami basketball team hiring a coach is a legitimate.
Well, not hiring, being interested in a coach.
Well, no,
Oh, that's a story.
I mean, he's the coach.
No, that's a story.
well, wait till it's confirmed. You gotta you gotta wait. I have to know because Mike's Gone from Happen to Know was the strongest, and then we upgraded it last week. And just earlier in today's segment, he just hit us with what my resume suggests. What my resume suggests, I think, is beyond I happen to know, and I'm saying this with what was the next layer of this? True conviction, the other upgrade to happen to know? I don't remember what it was. But Mike Bryan is now saying what my resume suggests when it comes to his reporting.
Yeah.
It'll happen. I mean, there's no question about
And
it.
I aspire to be right all the time, as I usually am.
Well,
Thank you, pal.
this part, okay, and Billy is right to get out there with just the facts. This part is scary. You don't like to get that stuff wrong. You get it wrong one
Furman
time.
apparently likes to.
You get it wrong one time and you shoot your credibility. If you get it wrong one time, and so a lot of people don't like the pressure of that. I don't.
Because if you get it wrong one time, everybody else is mocking you for how wrong you were.
Gary Furman reported John Gruden to the U, and anytime he reports anything, it's in the comments.
See you, Gary. Let's not forget about my report that we're still waiting to see if
Yeah.
the Bengals and Dolphins play in Spain. Because that's
Yours
what my
is-
sources are saying. Once the schedule comes out, I might be 1-for-1.
Let's get everybody involved. Roy, do you have a timeline for Matthew Tkachuk?
Paul Maurice says he's going to return this year, but we don't have a timeline yet. Hopefully
That
before the
is
playoffs.
this year. Jesus.
Isn't your thing the slow report? But this one is like a very rapid, fast report that you've reported well before anyone else, and it hasn't really
That was me. That was
caught on yet.
Like, there's the slow report, and then there's me.
Right.
When I get out there, that is a real report.
What date is this game? Because no one can tell me the date of this game.
I
And
asked.
It's like they don't want fans in Spain.
They
I
don't know yet.
understand. They don't know yet.
No, they don't.
Impossible.
Isn't confirmand just another form of the slow report? If you're saying that the story's already out there, but it's not until he's reported it, and that makes confirmand the end all be all point. Are you guys alleging that confirmand is now the new slow report? Because Greg Cody is now, I'm telling you, he has just triggered a decades old Miami Herald feud that only like 14 people are still alive to care about. He just took out, I'm not going to say Gary Furman's a Miami journalism legend, but he was one of the best writers on one of the best staffs.
He's a legend.
One of the best writers on what you say he's a legend, and
He is. He's a legend in that he's been around for a very long time.
Yes.
Covering
He's
things.
endured in this market.
It's a mix.
It's not. He's not a
It's mixed
compiler.
degrees of accuracy.
Yeah?
He's
What did
not-
he do with the Herald? What did he write? What did he cover? Do you remember?
He's not a compiler.
Here's what I'll say about Gary. He's always been around.
Greg.
Yeah, what did he cover? Do you remember?
Greg, why are
How
you?
memorable was it for you? What did he cover?
Why?
You remember?
Greg, do you remember?
Greg,
No.
Greg, he covered.
That's my point.
Greg, he covered the University of Florida. He covered a lot of college baseball. He covered the University of Miami as one of the secondary beat writers when that was one of the biggest beats in town.
Yep.
You're
One of
Yeah, he
the
backed up Jim
secondary.
Martz for a couple of years, for sure. Foul owl on the prowl.
If there's
Jim
more
Martz,
than one,
my mentor.
If there's more than one secondary beat writer, can you
That
consider
Edwin
yourself
Pope was your mentor.
a secondary?
Well, he's
beat
my
writer?
major mentor.
Is he
Yeah,
a
minor
tertiary
mentor?
beat writer?
Major and minor
If there's more
mentor?
than one, you can't be.
Secondary mentor?
Yeah, I can't. There can't be
Tertiary?
4 secondary beat writers.
Right.
Gary Furman backed up a couple of very important beats. He was an all-purpose guy. He was somebody who was top 10 on the names on the sports writers who worked for it.
He took a shot at my credibility. So
Yes or no?
Who's the
Greg?
best backup quarterback ever?
Top 10 on the staff?
on that staff?
Maybe he was for a time.
Trent Green?
You have Trent Green, the
I'm not
best
having
backup
him as
QB
backup.
ever.
Don't pigeonhole me as criticizing Gary Furman. I just think a little bit less of his career than you seem to.
Gerback.
Gerback.
How many years did he work at the Miami
I
Herald?
have no idea.
Take a guess. I'm going to guess 10 years.
Including part-time?
If
10?
you work
I don't know.
if you work 10 years at a newspaper, is that not enough to give you some credibility?
No doubt. No doubt. Is Steve Young a backup quarterback, or was that always like the plan?
I mean, I guess Brady was a backup.
Aaron
technically.
Rodgers, backup quarterback.
Yeah, like it felt like they acquired Steve Young, who got off to a rocky start in Tampa Bay, to one day be the guy. So to call him like one of the great backups, like this is a guy that was drafted high. I wouldn't do that.
Well, but he was the greatest backup ever. Steve Young to Joe Montana sat on the bench for a couple of years when everyone knew he was good enough to be one of the top 5 starters in the league. He is
Not a backup. Not a backup.
He would be universally considered the best quarterbacking backup that there has ever
How would
been.
it not be Brady by your math?
Yeah,
You
at
can't
that
call
point,
him a backup.
No, you can't. If you're acquiring a guy to one day replace a guy, that's not really
Yeah.
backup. We're talking like Scott Tolzien's.
No, but this and Steve Young at USFL wanted him. Like everybody, he was a can't miss player, and it didn't even make sense that he was backing up Joe Montana.
Therefore, you cannot be one of the great backups because
Right.
that's not your story.
Right. I get my backup when you talk about him being a backup. Nobody thinks of Steve Young as a backup quarterback. Nobody. He's in the Hall of Fame.
That is correct. But when he was a backup to 2 or 3 years to Joe Montana, when Chris is bringing up Tom Brady wasn't a backup.
What about Earl Morrall?
He was Drew Bledsoe.
No, but Tom
Earl
Brady
Morrall's
was
a good example.
About Aaron Rodgers.
No,
Thank
that's
you,
a
Billy.
Steve Young.
Steve Martin also.
That's a Steve Young and Martin classification. We're talking about Earl Morrall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Earl Morrall, the crew cut. Don, what's his name?
Strock?
Yeah, Don Strock.
Don, what's his name?
Yeah. Well, that's
Ladies
a
and
good job
gentlemen,
out of
that is
Tony.
the legendary expertise
Tony.
of Greg Cody.
Gotta pick up my boy.
Don, what's his name?
It took me a minute.
Yeah.
We love Don Strock.
That's okay. It's quite all right.
Another FIU guy.
Yeah.
This took out Gary Furman.
Yeah. Why did you guys wake up today to fight with Gary Furman?
We did not take out Gary.
No, my
He
dad
did.
did.
I didn't.
You keep.
You said,
saying-
do you remember anything he
No,
wrote?
Greg.
True first blood.
Greg.
Jeff
Greg,
Hostetler.
Greg.
He was a jack of all trades on the Herald sports staff. He covered high schools. He covered this. He covered that. He covered that. I don't think if Gary Furman's sitting right here, I'm going to insult him by saying you weren't one of the big stars on the Herald sports staff.
Hostetler won a Super Bowl. Ooh, is it Nick Foles?
Nick Foles.
Aaron
There it
Rodgers.
is. There it is. Nick Foles.
Tom Brady doesn't count as a backup.
No.
Doesn't count.
Nick Foles
But
does.
Steve
Nick
Young
Foles
guys?
does, though.
What-
Nick
what
Foles
math
Foles has
are
a
you doing?
statue.
Tom Brady was his rookie year, and he only threw 1 touchdown pass. You didn't know at the time that he was a special backup. Even when they won the Super Bowl, you didn't know if he could play quarterback well for them. He was just he
Wouldn't
was.
that make him more
That
of a
makes
backup?
him more of a backup.
Your argument that Steve Young was like this big prospect, makes
Yeah.
him less of a backup.
This is a good shout.
No, it's
he didn't
ridiculous.
have sustained excellence as a backup because he was so good as a starter.
I
This
would,
has to be a guy that was like, backup is my job and identity for a decade plus.
Nick Foles.
I don't understand how it is that Greg Cody doesn't think that he's taking out Gary Furman, because I don't think that Greg knows the weight. Okay, of
Now
his.
you're making fat jokes?
No, of his old.
Dan. Dan.
Come on, man.
It's Monday morning.
I don't think Greg Cody knows the weight of his old man columnist wags a finger at colleague, because he jarred me the other day when he just said of Billy Corbin, that guy's a jackass, on the air. And when he says of Gary Furman something that sounds disrespectful to me as a colleague who was your peer for a while.
Right.
And you're very
My colleague. Yeah.
Come on.
you this is as harsh as I've heard. This is as harsh as I've heard you be ever about
Okay.
a colleague, a fellow writer. I can't think of somebody you've ever talked about this way publicly.
Okay, first of all, I'm a very honest person. When I call Billy Corbin a jackass, what I mean is he's been a jackass to me. He doesn't like me. He criticizes me all the time, and the feeling is quite mutual. In the case of Gary Furman, the first thing I said was he has been a survivor in this market, and I give him credit for it. He's done a little bit of everything. He was the PR guy for the Honda Classic up in Palm Beach for years.
Can I get 4 tickets?
And so he's done a little bit of everything in this market. He's still going strong. I admire him, but I'm going to draw the line if you're trying to tell me he was one of the top star writers at the Miami Herald. He wasn't.
Okay. I mean, he was a starter on a loaded team.
Okay.
He's like a middle relief guy.
I mean, he's being disrespectful. I
I don't think
he's
so. I
being
think
nice.
look, you spoke for yourself there eloquently.
Thank you.
I am not crossed on your message.
Where do you put yourself on that staff? Like when the rankings, since you've clearly done this, you've got tiers of how
Right.
good these
Yeah.
people are.
Yeah.
You named
Tears of a clown.
Smokey.
Look, at that time, I was the guy looking up to all these stars. I was not Peter Richmond or S.L. Price, Scott Price.
You were Mulder though. That was a great rotation.
It
was
was.
like we have 3 number ones.
No, it was terrific. It was absolutely.
Or were you Hudson?
I'm blessed to have worked on one of the great writing staffs in the history of American newspapers. I wasn't the star at that time. I
Grant
was
Wall
working my
hanging
way up.
around. Grant Wall was hanging around that.
Grant Wall was there. Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, he's in the Furman category though.
Grant Wall.
Yeah, Grant
boy.
Wall was
Oh, see?
never.
He's not around to defend him.
Grant Wall was never
Rest in
a
power.
star at the Miami
Rest in
Herald.
power.
You're just judging him on
Rest
like what he
in
did at the
power.
Herald.
No.
Because Grant Wall went on to become the greatest American soccer
Yeah,
reporter.
loved
ever.
loved him. No, he was never a star.
God
at the
rest his
Miami
soul.
Herald. Yeah, R.I.P.
You thought better of doing what you were. Grant Wall
I was
was.
just talking about the Herald.
I'm talking about at the Herald.
Yeah, it's very clear.
Keep
Okay.
up, Dan.
Billy,
Hey,
bring back understated news gathering. Bring back.
I'm trying by not talking about it. Just put the news out and moved on. There's no guys. Guess what? Every day there's news. There's gonna be more news today.
Yep. damn
Someone will
right.
break it. Story's not about them. It's
Snap
about the
it.
story. Snap it.
I'll tell you one
And you
person
know
that
it.
won't be reporting it.
We did have some leftover All-Star discussion, right? Because I talked earlier in the week about the NHL and their sort of successful Four Nations event, which took over for their All-Star game. They didn't have an All-Star game this year. Has been a great event, but there's this sort of narrative being built, like the NBA, because it happened on the same week, basically, the NBA versus the NHL. And as somebody who is, I wouldn't say a fully grown NHL fan, I'm more of a like adolescent age NHL fan. I know like my team and maybe one or two others. I can see both sides of this argument. I mean, tell me you saw what PK Subban had to say about this.
First of all, you're a coward and a traitor. Second of all, yeah, I heard what he said, and I got thoughts. Play the clip.
Well, listen, hockey's a different sport from the NBA. You can't compare the cultures because of the way the game is played.
I wonder why that is. Tell me more, PK.
You can step on an NBA floor and go through the emotions. You can't do that in hockey.
You can't do that in hockey. Well, you can do. What else can you do in hockey that we can't do in basketball?
You have to play it with passion. You have to be willing to fight. You have to be willing to leave it on the ice.
Fight! That's the thing you can do that we can't do. That's the thing they legislate out of our sport because America is scared when the black guys are fighting. Oh my goodness, we have to protect the children. But when the hockey players do it, it's, yeah, they're passionate.
So for us, when we charge $1,500 for a ticket to come to fans know what they're getting.
There's a hockey ticket that's $1,500? Who's paying that?
It's based on the pride, honor, playing for the guy next to you.
Yeah, right. So, like, playing for your country, you mean, right? Putting on your country's colors, playing against another country that, I don't know, that the president of your country may have called a 51st state and causing the fans over there to boo because of things that have nothing to do with your sport. Let me put that down for our All-Star weekend.
I haven't sat down and watched the NBA consistently since Kobe.
Bro, I haven't watched the NHL since.
Since pre-COVID. All right, look, I feel like PK Subban might have had a few good points there, but he sort of let this sort of flesh out a little bit on the Dan Le Batard Show yesterday. So let's hear him out for a second.
The hockey culture itself, it's always protected the team aspect of the game. And ultimately what that is the players, coaches, everybody that is in the game, no one thinks they're bigger than the game. I think we were put on a platform. This Four Nations tournament has been such a huge success because the players, first the league put the structure around it, and then the players the players showed up in a big way and have showed up in a big way, and they've earned it. And anything that we're getting right now is all earned, and it's earned on the backs of the players.
It is relatively true, Amin, right?
Oh, you made a good point. All right.
He got your ass. Look, he clearly has a good point. I mean, that is, first of all, this was sort of, it's like jumping into a rivalry. You're creating an event out of nowhere, but you're just including like Lakers and Celtics at their prime. Like, of course, it's going to create all of this heated situation. It's going to be U.S. versus Canada. It's going to be fights and all that. But the thing is, if this was a regular All-Star game, if they didn't do this whole new event, which, by the way, is what the NBA was trying, right? A different type of event, it wouldn't have been this successful. They wouldn't have been fighting. They would have scored 1 million goals, and you would have said, all right, let's get ready for the second half of the NHL season. So it just so happens that they have this device available to them, that they completely got rid of the All-Star game, which is what people in the NBA want to do. Not going to happen. Yeah, that's what you had to do to make this work. Am I right?
This is my favorite thing. Mike Ryan brought this up. Or the Four Nations Cup or whatever, and this NBA All-Star thing is a gimmick. This was about a month ago, maybe even more. And I looked at Mike Ryan and I said, yeah, this is a gimmick, right? What the NBA is doing. He said, yeah, it's so silly. Where do they get their ideas? Like, yeah, I said, they got it from NHL. The NHL did this exact format like 6 or 7 years ago. I know because I was at the damn game.
I am legitimately surprised that Greg Cody, and I'm sorry to belabor this, has taken out Gary Furman. I know we've spent too much time on it. I have been knocked over by a South Florida legend being less than respectful to somebody else who is another South Florida media legend. And I happen to really admire in this business, in this town, the survivors. The people who could get to the very end of their careers, outlasting their businesses by evolving.
Greg, what do you think the perception of you is amongst the writers? Because you seem to not have a very favorable one of many of the writers, and I'm wondering if this is just like a writer thing or if it's like a uniquely you thing. Like you have problems with the Furmans, the Hydes of the world. Like, is this just a normal thing amongst all of you disliking each other, but also saying you respect each other? Or like, are you the one that has a problem with everyone?
Billy, I don't know where that's coming from. Dave Hyde and I are good friends. I think
Did he come to your 70th?
He was invited and couldn't make it, and he told me why. But he was invited, and I think he's a wonderful columnist. I think he's really, really
Billy,
good.
what are you accusing? Dave Hyde's not a good representation. What are you accusing Greg Cody of
I'm not
here?
accusing anyone of anything. I'm just asking the situation because I think...
You don't know whether Greg Cody is liked by his colleagues? I don't know whether
I'm wondering
he is
if they would say the same thing about you, and this is just kind of how you guys hang out. You know what I mean?
I'm not critical of anyone in this market. Not since the days of Charles Bricker have I just actively not gotten along with anybody that I fraternize with.
Chris,
did you talk to Bricker recently?
Yeah, they were reintroduced to one another on the air.
Can you please get that for me?
Please
Please
get that 40-minute segment in its entirety.
I think that this thing is the funniest prank we've ever pulled on Greg Cody.
It really is.
It was great because I legit was buying it until about halfway through.
You guys should release.
She gets a little lippy.
You guys should
It's earmarked for a supercut on the oral history.
Just release it separately. Just let somebody listen to 40 minutes of that if they have not heard Greg Cody being introduced to his old rival Charles Bricker. The thing that I wanted to theorize though with you, Chris, because I don't think you actually know your father here, and I think it insults him to not know him here, that you and your brother have taken so little interest in the thing he cares about in a career. I think that one of the reasons that he is regarding Gary Furman as lower on the food chain than I do is because Gary Furman was a very workmanlike writer. He was kind of like Barry Jackson, where he was nuts and bolts information. And I believe that Greg Cody thinks himself something of a poet and judges other writers only there. Who's a better writer than me, or who's a good writer, who's got touch? I think I think it's the thing he admires most. I'm theorizing on his behalf, but I think that's probably one of the things that he does because he really loves the craft of writing. Chris, what do you think is the worst insult you can give your father if you're writing him a nasty letter at the Herald, the way that people used to do? Like, what do you think is the single worst insult that you could give your father that would hurt him the most?
Doesn't show up to the games.
Lazy?
Yeah.
That's not your opinion.
No.
No,
He
that's
asks
what
you,
writers
like,
might-
how would
yeah.
you hurt
That's
your dad?
yeah. I would think
Readers
like I
would
always
say.
see him at opening day in the playoffs. Like that's the only time Greg shows
That's
up.
fair. That's a fair criticism.
You haven't been to the Fronton since you almost died.
That's fair.
That's by choice. I
It's
don't want him there.
traumatic,
It's,
though,
For
yeah.
me, I don't like. I was Dad.
Yeah, nobody ever breaks news on your highlight team. Why is that? Is it a tight-lipped?
We do it like Billy.
Franchise?
We do it quietly.
Come
Yeah,
around
okay.
and
I think
give
the
you a
worst
scoop.
insult is that you call him a shitty writer.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that
At
seems,
what you
That
do,
seems very
shitty.
specific.
Seems
yeah.
pretty
You're
bad.
terrible
No,
at your job.
not-
is-
not-
yeah.
you
No,
are
no.
shitty at your
No.
occupation will always stay.
No, because he was a reporter for a long time. I'm talking about he's making a distinction between reporter and writer, I think. I think he's making all the people he's talking about as legends at the Miami Herald were people who were they were poets.
They were great writers, and I learned a lot from all of them, including Edwin Pope, my ultimate mentor. You're a great writer. I mean, I do respect more highly people who I think are really skilled with words. I respect that more than I respect breaking a news story. I just do, which probably speaks ill of me and is a reason why they, shunted me off to be a columnist because I wasn't that good as a beat reporter.
Might be. I haven't tried my hand at really skillfully trying to write. It seems very difficult. The breaking news beat is a very difficult beat. It's all
entirely.
consuming.
No, you're right. You're right, and somebody's got to do it, and I admire people who do it well. It's very difficult, and I never had a knack for it. I was never somebody who was gonna chum up to people I was covering and become friends with them. Back in the day when I was covering teams as a beat, I did that a little bit, particularly with the Dolphins, more so than the Canes. But I just never liked it. I never liked waiting in a half-empty locker room for a 20-year-old kid to come out hoping that he might grant an interview with me. To me, that was demeaning. That was a part of journalism.
That's
I
the
didn't like.
job, though.
Yeah. Like you move past it or something.
That is, you say that's the job, but that's the distinction I'm making when I say if you say he's a shitty reporter, he doesn't care. He was. But if you say he's a shitty writer, you've insulted him at his core because he knows he's not.
Right, and I know better, but it still would hurt to hear it.
I'm sorry, Tony. The people kind of decided, though, in terms of public lore, the breaking news people have it.
Mm-hmm.
The great age of columnists kind of went by the wayside
Right.
with newspapers having happened what happened.
Yeah, now we all have podcasts like the Greg Cote Show, but
Who's on this week?
But I'm going to argue. I'm going to argue that the columnist should be more coveted than he or she ever was, for the simple reason that news is breaking everywhere now. Udonis Haslem might break news. Somebody in a tweet, some athlete in a tweet might break news. It's not just coming from mainstream media anymore. And so the columnists that you enjoy reading, who can make you smile, make you laugh, make you think, I think there's a value there that is beyond breaking news, in my opinion. Then again, I have a vested interest.
Greg, I'm absolutely 100% in agreement with you. And all respect to Gary Furman, that's his name. Yeah. I just learned about Gary Furman today. I had no idea who Gary Furman was, obviously, but I come from a different generation of Miami Herald writers. I have a specific way that I know who a Miami Herald legend is. Dan, you're a Miami Herald legend, clearly, obviously. Greg Cote, you also. The way that I know.
But if Furman was here, what would you say to him?
I'd give him the same thing, right? I'd tell him exactly what I'm going to tell you guys. When I go to Flanagan's and I go to take a leak in the urinal, if your face stares back at my hog,
Furman's name has been there, but not his face.
I've never
maybe
seen
on
his
a Saturday
face.
morning.
Okay.
Maybe on a
I've
Saturday
never
morning
seen
with a
Furman's
college
face
football notes
staring at
column.
my hog
This
at
is
the
the
urinal.
standard.
I get my dad's face photoed to me once a week.
Staring?
Somebody at Flanagan's.
Exactly.
That
right.
is the standard. Can you imagine? I want all of you, Chris most of all, to fully absorb what your father's legacy is.
It's weird for me when I'm there.
Staring at my hog.
Flanagan's bathroom.
I've seen it before.
Over the urinal. Look, That's a back in my day. Back in my day, you'd put a newspaper over a urinal and somebody knew what that meant. That meant that columnist mattered in this town.
Nowadays, it might be the column from last week. You know, might not be up to date, but it's going to be there.
Braves, Tigers, split squad.
Oh, baseball's back.
12-8.
Tis the season.
Tony, that is excellent work by you. That is the gold standard for where journalism matters. Over the urinal. Put it on the poll, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Is over the urinal at Flanagan's the highest journalism standard?
In closing, the only issue that I have with Gary Furman is that he took out Peter Ariza's reporting, which was credible for several weeks. This was an airtight job of reporting by Kane's Insight. To come out and say that it's untrue when you're the person that reported John Gruden to Miami, not me, is not a great look.
Okay, enough, please. And it's my fault. I know it's my fault. Let's move on to something I did not think we'd be discussing in 2025. A-Rod winning again. Just A-Rod always in the middle and the center of some strange sort of fame currency that, look, man, this is hard to do. And I will tell you that I've had a conversation with A-Rod about dating Madonna and having the conversations with Madonna about how you keep yourself relevant and growing through fame as old people become discarded. A-Rod's ability to be in the center of things and now really climb into ownership in a place that has him making a half-court shot. Is he wearing a suit in this clip? Because he's almost always wearing a suit, and there it is.
Bank.
Yeah,
This also...
That's good form.
By the way, for clarification, this was at Bucknell because he, I believe, had like a meeting or a speaking engagement there. So, like, this isn't even the basketball team that he owns. This is just he was randomly at Bucknell, and he was taking shots on behalf of scholarships for a student.
You can make the argument, and with not get a lot of rebuttal, that A-Rod is the biggest and most important athlete in the history of South Florida. Like, and you know, relevant since he was 17 years old and still climbing into ownership in power brokering ways because he profited, made a ton of money, and cheated and resurrected himself after the cheating, which is just nuts to me.
You're talking about like from South Florida.
Yeah, like homegrown.
Homegrown.
Yeah, I'm just talking about most relevant athletes in the history of this market. Where you,
Dwayne Wade, duh.
If you put at the but Dwayne Wade was.
We raised him.
Well, A-Rod
This
hasn't
is
played,
home. He'd
hasn't
never
played
leave.
down here, so.
It matters that you're from here, does it not?
Yes.
Yeah, it matters.
It doesn't matter as much, though, as playing for a team down here, right?
Yeah, like if we raised someone and all they're playing was in high school and then they did all of their winning elsewhere, who cares?
I wouldn't say who cares, but to Billy's point, it's, you know, that's why I put a little asterisk by calling him the most influential.
Well, but wait a minute. What's the asterisk that you're doing? Because by your standard, then Mike Lowell would be more relevant locally because he went from somebody who won a championship here,
right,
for this region and being from this region, than A-Rod, who wants to be about this region so much that he pays millions of dollars to put his name on the college baseball stadium, wants to be known as from the hood in Kendall, and is somebody who is trying to imprint South Florida for the world, right? Mm-hmm. Like he's proudly from here. You can't say that about Dwayne Wade.
All right, the guidelines are you have to be born here. Correct?
Not born here necessarily, but just your athletic prime.
Because A-Rod wasn't born here.
We saw you grow up. We saw you grow up. We saw you in our high schools. We saw you in 8th grade.
Yeah,
People were whispering about you in the streets.
I've got a good one that plays a lot of different categories. Frank Gore.
That's a good one.
Yes.
Played high school, played college.
I mean, he's a Hall of Famer,
pro.
but when I say to you, I'm sorry, is not something that who's second place
Oh, Lamar
here?
Jackson.
Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. Two-time MVP. South Florida.
What was that sound, Billy?
Well, I mean, we're still trying to figure out the rules. If they didn't play here professionally, then is that part of it or is it not part of it? Jose Canseco never played here.
The rules are you from here? And then what did you do? And you guys are saying you have to have won in Miami, which would disqualify A-Rod.
Not the Tri-County area. We're not talking about Palm Beach or Broward. We're
What if
talking
you
straight up Miami?
What if you live here on your spare time?
Yeah.
No.
While you're doing the winning elsewhere, like the Williams sisters.
Okay.
How about Mike Lowell?
I already said that.
What?
You know what, Tony?
Aaron Rodgers?
Tony, God damn it.
Okay. Okay.
The Rock is a good one.
The
Yeah,
Rock
what about
is a
The
great
Rock?
one. How about
Even
The
though
Rock?
that was
Yes,
confusing.
Dwayne Johnson.
Did it at the U.
Yeah. Oh.
That's a champion.
Minor penalty, 2 minutes for not listening.
FIU baseball matters.
Get out of here.
That's
I
what
already
I've been
said
trying to tell
that.
anyone that'll listen.
Michael Lowell's a good one.
Said Mike Lowell.
Yeah, he's a good one.
Mike Lowell denied first ballot entry
Wow.
into the new made-up Marlins Hall of Fame.
Le Batard, Mike Lowell doesn't matter.
I think he's mad at our show.
He
think
is.
Our show or
No, he's mad at me.
I think Mike.
What'd you
Lowell
do
is
to him?
There's like a 15-year-long grudge. He didn't find something. I was like, you weren't that great defensively at second base. He's like, you know what? Blood feud forever.
At third base.
Yeah.
No. I criticized his ability to play second base because he was an emergency second baseman during a season, and he took it really personally, which I have apologized
I don't
for.
wanna
There's probably
feud
more
with
to it
Mike.
than this.
Okay,
There
it
has
is.
to be
No.
more
That
to
was
than
it.
this.
That was it. He's like, I'll take crap talk from you, Le Batard, but Mike, no way. And that's pretty much where we left it.
Okay, Mike Lowell had a problem with us perpetually undermining how good of an athlete he was by making fun of him, a number of different things, one of which is we all thought we could beat him in a foot race. And so I think
Him running down the first base line was always fun to watch.
yeah, but again, we can set up a race between you and Mike Lowell now. Mike, I don't want to feud with Mike Lowell or Gary Furman.
Well, I'm good with Gary. I'm good with feuding with Gary. Mike Lowell, I've apologized, and if he doesn't want to accept it, I'm sorry. Mike, for the record, I'm sorry I said you played with a frying pan in your hand. We actually Googled it. Your defensive metrics were really good. It was just odd at that stage in your career to watch you at second base. I thought we were all having fun. You clearly weren't. I'm sorry again.
Okay, it's just I don't want to feud with anybody else today.
I'd like to see Mike Lowell race Gary Furman for charity.
Okay, we'll set that up shortly. I'm sure we'll get people to come out by the thousands. Thank you
Who's
for a
more
terrible
upset with
idea.
us, do you think, today?
I don't want to do this anymore. Let's move on to other subjects. Over the weekend, I really did, and you guys had to have found this funny. And for the people listening who may not be familiar with what is just a majestically silly rule. The New York Yankees since the 1970s have just sort of proudly been, you'll not wear facial hair on our watch. Not over the dead body of George Steinbrenner, we're going to be a well-groomed beard allergic team. No facial hair. For the New York Yankees, for Jeff Passan to write a long story this weekend, because only the most important stories that are culture shifting get the Jeff Passan treatment. For Jeff Passan to write a long story about how monumental it is that 50 years after Steinbrenner implemented, the New York Yankees are now willing to allow their players to wear only a well-groomed beard. And this being some sort of victory for America, progress, that the New York Yankees are embracing facial hair, is one of the comically ridiculous, wonderful stories I've ever seen reported on a weekend in sports.
Dan, take the victories when you can get them, all right? This is progress.
Udonis Haslem.
Yes.
Greg, don't get distracted by the fact that Billy's doing his own show there.
Yeah,
Just
he is.
go
No,
ahead and refer to whatever it is that I was talking about.
That was a good comment.
Yes.
UD.
Don't get distracted by Billy purposely trying to stop the show in its tracks that way.
No, he's right about UD.
Trying to help.
Thank you.
It's huge news mainly because it's the New York Yankees and because the no beard rule was so archaic. It's nice to see the Yankees step gingerly into the 21st century because the old rule was straight out of 1956. It's ridiculous. And I think what's happening here is the Yankees realize that in an age where the coveted free agent is getting a couple of $500 million offers, maybe the tiebreaker on that offer is going to be, you know what? I've had a beard my whole life. I ain't shaving a beard.
I don't think there's a person that's turned down $200 million for the Yankees over facial hair yet.
Well, what if that's the tiebreaker, though? What if he's got two $200 million
This
offers?
is wonderful to think about. Look at Chris Cody agreeing with that.
I just think my dad's right. If it's the money similar, it could come down to, I prefer to have a beard.
It's not even prefer to have a beard. I prefer to work for an organization that doesn't care whether or not I have a beard. Do I really want to be working for people who are that interested in my grooming?
Amanda Nunes.
Ooh.
The idea of that as a story, though, you're saying it's huge news, Greg. That's ridiculous.
It's huge news because it's New York and because of the rule was so outdated.
I understand that it is news. It's just I don't understand how in 2025, anybody can be okay with an employer saying, we're not good with a well-groomed beard. Like, you cannot have facial hair. And then furthermore, there were all, go look at what Goose Gossage had on his face. I don't know what that was. He was allowed to wear facial hair.
Mustaches are good, though.
Yeah, mustaches.
But that was not a mustache. Look at what Goose Gossage had. That was more than a mustache.
You can have
Reggie
a mustache.
Jackson.
They established that you could have a mustache that was well groomed with the Yankees.
But
Giambi tried it out a
Goose
little bit.
Gossage was pushing it. He was right between mustache and beard. He was
Mustaches were socially acceptable.
Right?
Do you want to hear this sound of Hal talking about it? Because it's funny to hear him. He's just like, these kids these days, they like their beards.
You know, our new vice president has a beard. Members of Congress have a beard. The list goes on and on and on in this country and in this world. It is a part of who these younger men are. It's a part of their character. It's a part of their persona. I did make the decision that the policy that was in place was outdated, and given how important it is to that generation, and given that it is the norm in this world today, that it was somewhat unreasonable.
Wow. Hal feels like a pioneer in these conservative times, like boldly going out there, progressively saying, I think a beard shows you a man's character.
Yeah.
These young people today, they're making artistic statements with their beards.
There's members of Congress with beards.
Imagine that.
It is a part of who these younger men are. It's a part of their character.
Brian Wilson and David Price both voiced concerns about the facial hair policy and not going to the Yankees. Now,
there you go.
Probably dodged a bullet with not signing Brian Wilson long term, right? Like that was
He
a
had
fun
the world by
flash
the
in the pan.
balls,
Yeah,
though.
but I mean, what do you give that guy? And then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, now we're stuck with him for a while.
But would that be a well-groomed beard? Because what Brian Wilson's would be illegal by Yankee standards. They would be the judges of what would be well-groomed.
It was incredibly well groomed. For a longer beard, it was perfect.
But what I'm guessing, you guys, everyone here correct me, that if the Yankees, and whatever was the height of this ridiculous movement of no facial hair, if a Yankee of some sort had worn a cartoonishly James Harden beard, that would be against the principles of what it is the Yankees were saying, that a man could show of his character and personality on his face.
No.
That would be too much character.
No, that's well groomed.
I disagree.
That's well groomed. What's not well groomed is, Keanu Reeves. Anytime you see him do an interview, and it's all patchy. Yeah. Jason Worth, less well groomed, but like Brian Wilson, that's creme de la creme. Yeah. Like he established an aesthetic.
I understand what you're saying. Do you understand what I'm saying? Which is the Yankees are trying to eradicate personality. It's not that you will come in sloppy and unprofessional. It's that the New York Yankees wanted the pinstripes to always lord above whatever it is you thought was your personal expression.
I thought it was about control. Yeah, personally, especially towards the latter end when the salaries got out of whack with George Steinbrenner. I thought it became all about control.
The question is, would my dad be able to play if this picture of my dad that we have up here, would my dad have been able to play with this beard?
Okay, so this is right between, this is sort of what Goose Gossage was doing, where it's like, I don't know you're starting as a mustache, but Greg Cody is also, testing the limits of mustacheness.
The video team says this is a combination of Greg, Stugotz, and Dan. Oh.
Chris, can you please,
save some for the rest of us?
Can you just grab for me a few sounds? First, I'd like the 22 minutes, please, of Greg Cody talking to Charles Bricker.
Oh, God.
That was on the line, and we should go through that with a fine-tooth comb. Oral history supercut.
All right. I do want to release the 22-minute. It's one of the greatest pranks in the history of Greg Cody. Greg, what are you doing?
What do you mean?
He's right.
Why are you holding you're wielding your coffee mug?
Shaking it up.
Did you see Hal, by the way, mentions shaking things up. He also announced no more New York after losses. Oh. Now, Yankees lose. That's life.
You got to earn.
Playing.
You got to learn. You got to earn. You got to earn New York.
Mm-hmm.
But
what's spreading the news?
What is that? What do you mean? Why did they change that? What's wrong
with
life?
That's life.
You're not going to play New York for losers.
Yeah.
You play That's Life.
Good decision.
Exactly right.
Yep. Hal's got it going on.
Okay. Put it on the poll. Does Hal have it going on? And again, I want you guys, please, can you understand for just a second, just enjoy the idea of somebody so burdened by the Steinbrenner name. so burdened by whatever it's been to be the Yankee boss's kid in a tabloid town where dad ran this town when the Yankees were the most important thing, to come out in front of the cameras and have to nervously explain, look, I know this is crazy, what I'm about to do here. And I know that a lot of Yankee fans aren't going to like this, but I'm going to be scared as I deliver the news of, congressmen have beards, and the beard is a form of character. This is a scared son child trying to play up to daddy's rules on facial hair.
Our new vice president has a beard. Members of Congress have a beard. The list goes on and on and on in this country and in this world. It is a part of who these younger men are. It's a part of their character. It's a part of their persona. I did make the decision that the policy that was in place was outdated. And given how important it is to that generation, and given that it is the norm in this world today, that it was somewhat unreasonable.
Wow. Do you understand what a waste of that man's time it is to sit in front of people and have to explain that?
What else is he doing?
No, but
the burden of growing up a Steinbrenner. Yeah, I'm sure Hal really wanted to earn his pinstripes and become president of the Yankees on his own without help from daddy's last name.
Hal had an epiphany. He woke up one morning and said, you know what? Facial hair is a part of someone's personality. We're going to allow it. The turn of the century, baseball had a team that required full beards, flowing beards like a 19th century U.S. president, Garfield or somebody. And this
Are you
rule,
looking this up?
No.
Are you?
And this rule was just as ridiculous to not allow facial hair. It's crazy. But now, by saying it has to be a well-groomed beard, you're still opening a can of worms because now...
Yeah, who judges that?
The Yankees have a vice president in charge of judging whether your beard is well-groomed or not. It's ridiculous. You can have a beard down to your... If I'm running the club, have a beard down to your navel if you can catch a damn fly ball. Why are we judging facial hair in sports? It's crazy.
What an odd rant.
I'm an odd man.
Do you have the sound of Billy doing the FIU baseball game? Speaking of odd men, Billy, you did your first. This is your first FIU baseball game. You very quietly became a broadcaster for FIU baseball out of nowhere. You have become somebody who pops up as a content factory in places quietly.
Yeah.
And you did so this weekend for FIU baseball. What's the sound that we've gathered here?
We have a couple clips from FIU baseball, and if you like it, I'm going to be doing another game on Friday evening. You can check it out, ESPN Plus. That's where we're going to do it. This is me, so they had FIU baseball starters, career high was 9 strikeouts. And, got off to a bit of a slow start. It's early in the season. Players on somewhat of a pitch count, so I felt pretty confident in the assessment I was about to give you.
Looks like we're not going to see his career high in strikeouts for a game at 9 unless we really start swinging and missing. We'll see.
Another strikeout. There is number 9. In 3 2/3 innings.
We were in the second inning when I said I don't think we're going to get to 9 because, we're already close to 40 pitches, and I think there's more of a build-up to that, but it's fine. Yeah, second inning, 4 strikeouts. I said 9 is going to be impossible, but no, it wasn't.
You're there for that kind of expertise, right? You were there.
My role wasn't entirely discussed. They just said, would you like to call some games? And I said yes, so I assume it was for my expertise, not for silliness like what you're about to hear.
It's his birthday on Wednesday. You guys wish him a happy birthday?
I did.
Good for you. See? It's a real friend.
Of course.
Not like you, Zach. Jeez. Do you know who his favorite artist is?
My birthdays.
I do not.
Do you know who his favorite artist is?
I don't.
Picasso. That seems like just something you say.
Yeah.
I mean.
That's kind of difficult to get
Here
wrong,
I am thinking
like.
you were going to say a music.
Like it's like Drake or
right.
like Future. I said, all right.
No. I mean,
what other information do they give you that?
He loves a good burger.
He doesn't.
I'll tell you that right now. Loves a good burger.
Shout out to Burr Bowl right down the street.
I don't believe that he loves Picasso. This just respectfully to Jaden Bishop.
I guess we're going to have to ask him.
You calling me a liar?
I just want the full scoop.
I could just make stuff up and you wouldn't know the difference, right? You just assume I'm reading it from something. You want to guess his favorite artist? It's not Picasso.
Music or
That's
painting?
your hint.
Music or painting?
this?
This one's music.
I'm going to say
Bunny?
Bad Bunny, yeah.
It is Bad Bunny.
Let's go.
All right.
I shouldn't have told you.
Well,
Maybe I'm a good teammate.
In fairness, it doesn't say musical artist. It just says artist. So he may be a fan of Bad Bunny's painting.
He took the liberty to do it as a music artist. And
Yeah.
yes, that lines up.
You think Bad Bunny paints?
I think he does it all. Whoa.
Crushed to right field. It'll be pulled foul.
There is a sitcom here somewhere of broadcasters who go to work together in a booth and don't like each other.
Don't like each other. Is that what you gathered from that?
I'm.
Well, hold on. This is constructive criticism because I haven't received this yet. When I left, they said that was a lot of fun, and I said, "Okay, see you Friday." So you think they didn't like me?
Well, no, this is
because I thought you look here. There's the play-by-play guy. They brought in a former FIU baseball player to kind of give you the ins and the outs, the nuts and bolts, if you will. So I said, well, where do I fit? So I would go through, I would watch the videos of, media day. I'd read the media guide to get facts about all the players. And then I'd find things like this person's favorite artist is Picasso. Maybe this is a helpful fact I can throw in there in the middle of the fourth inning.
But they don't
just in
trust you.
case.
They think you're lying. They don't believe you. They think you're there to cause chaos. And I wouldn't like that if I was sacred about broadcasting.
I will say this, and I don't know if I should give you all of this information beforehand, but I made sure to call Zach, the lead play-by-play guy, like 2 days before and introduce myself because I had never met either of the broadcasters before. So I called and I said, let me introduce myself to Zach in particular, just so that because Zach
Was he aware of your work or no?
Well, he's a young up and comer, and I said,
so he knows you're an evil cat.
Dog.
No,
but
tone,
I said let's have a nice get to know you session on the phone beforehand, so that we're not surprised, kind of by the way this may end up going, which I thought was a nice gesture on my part. If I'm going to be perfectly honest,
It is not only nice, but Tony, this is why this is a very specific, funny lane for Billy to occupy. If you're working with young broadcasters who aren't familiar with as what Mike Ryan might call what my resume suggests.
He's from Syracuse. This is a real deal broadcasting.
Well, but
Newhouse.
Okay, look, I have seen this happen too many times. Tony Kornheiser and his wackiness was not welcome around the sacredness that makes Hal Steinbrenner moan because someone's got hair on their face. The cathedral of sports, the ridiculous sports people fear of being different makes it so that you're going to be on that broadcast and they're not going to know what to make of you. The broadcasters who are taking it seriously.
You're right. Dennis Miller, same thing.
And so even if you're calling to warn them, hey, are you familiar with what it is that I do?
Not warn, just kind of a get-to-know-you session. You know what I mean? It's because it's awkward if you just go on the air first time you meet someone and you're just kind of, which is basically what happened. So I wanted to,
I
have
think
a call.
More awkward than the awkward of going on the air without having worked together before is the specialty of awkward that you have, where you're purposely going for the awkward. Yes, where the broadcasters are taking their job seriously and you're finding funny.
Dude, I spent 2 hours reading a media guide and watching videos of media day.
You're very
take
well
it seriously.
No, you're very well prepared.
Mike caught me in the middle of a Zoom with the opposing Delaware baseball coach on Tuesday in the middle of the show.
I kicked him on the shin.
He's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, Delaware baseball coach is here. I need to know what's going on with the Blue Ducks.
Hens, the blue hens.
Well, they're gone. I don't need to worry about them anymore. On to Mary Mac.
Wow. He does prepare. But I think what Dan's suggesting is that you do have a bit of a bit. Yeah.
I want two strangers in the booth. I think that'd be great chemistry.
I'm telling you that there is I would love to read something that is scripted about broadcasters being awkward around each other because they're trying to remain professional, but they don't actually have chemistry or know each other. Billy going to these broadcasts and doing FIU baseball and, making fun of the construct while inside of the construct while pretending he's not, and also getting on the pre-call with the Delaware
in the middle of the show was wild.
But you were interviewing PK Subban. What am I? You guys are ranking the hottest black men. I thought I was fine at the time to hear what the Delaware baseball coach had to say.
It went beyond the Subban interview.
It went a little longer than I thought. I'm going to be honest with you.
Mike, you just
thankfully Coach Whitten. We had our Thursday.
No, he self-snitched. I would have never revealed that he was talking to the manager of the Delaware Blue Hens.
During the show, I didn't know.
There was one time I was in your headphones. Don't go to Billy just yet. I can't say why.
It was was like a 15-minute chat. You know what I mean? We had to talk about the players.
Yeah, you don't turn down that chance.
Exactly right.
When
I mean,
you
I
get
didn't.
a chance to interview the Delaware Blue Hens manager.
Yeah. How many times have you guys done that?
I have not.
Exactly.
I was doing a lot of.
I did
Maine,
wave hello.
Maine. I did a lot of Maine black bear.
the black
Oh,
bears.
yeah, the black bears. Yeah.
Good squad.
So what you're telling me, if I'm to understand correctly, is that me going on there and me doing research beforehand, where I get fun facts about the different players in a clip that maybe we'll play here, possibly Chris Cody, maybe I'll play here. What you're saying to me is that if I'm there and I'm doing the research where I find out the biggest fears of the baseball players, and I'm sharing that in like the 5th inning of the 7th game of the season, that this is a problem of sorts and this is a bit and not me doing my job.
He's a grad student out of Key West.
Yeah.
Worst fear is the dark or huge birds. Hopefully the birds here won't spook him.
Hopefully the birds don't scare him too
Which
bad.
do you think scares him more? Because the media guide says dark or huge birds.
Crushed it down the line, foul. That's a great question.
I'd say it's more the huge birds.
Yeah, I mean, night games would be a problem.
Huge birds? Was that the description?
Dark
Okay.
or huge birds.
I would say huge.
I'm going to agree with Rhino there.
Yeah.
I will tell the audience, and this is a Guillermo Mafia that is very strong. If you believe Billy to be the greatest of all the characters in the history of this show, the idea that Billy would spend any time listening to the droning of the manager of the Delaware Blue Hens
Blue Hens.
during our show, just so that he could go make the joke of, I'm prepared in the event anyone asks me a Blue Hen managerial question. So I can go to, in the pre-interview, we talked to Skip, and he said X, Y, and Z, but Billy is going to great lengths to broadcast in the small lanes that these serious broadcasters will afford him.
I was, taking my time with Coach Mamula, hear what he had to say about the Blue Hens, and, we learned some things.
Someone has to work on their breathing, though, in there.
There were some slurping sounds as well.
That's a lot of sounds in that booth, by the way.
Weird.
There was a bit of slurping in there, yes.
Well, it's a TV broadcast, so, it's primarily visual.
Did you enjoy yourself? Were you
Yeah.
nervous? Working with new people? What's the worst part of it? Working with new people or collaborating with new people or just doing something for the first time?
A little bit of all of it. It's difficult to build a rapport with people that you haven't worked with before. So hopefully the next one, goes a little better than the last one. And that's just the goal. Just keep it moving, keep it talking baseball, keep it about the players and the game, and that's it.
Billy,
Have people tune in to watch some
I have some advice
Panthers
for you.
football. Oh, great.
Go watch the Alex Solana broadcast. Those are so much better. Just take some notes from Alex and then just redo it on your end. Because he comes prepared. He comes ready to go. He's got his hands going. And Billy, you got bringing up Picasso. I mean, after the media stuff is done, what are you going to do?
The Picasso note is a good one when the
What is that?
Solana.
Yeah, what is this exactly? What's happening?
I just saw his broadcast, very professional.
Really? You
he came in a
watched the
suit.
entire broadcast?
He came in a suit. You didn't show up in a suit?
I don't know what he went in a
to do
shoot
that.
for. He wasn't on camera, so going in a suit is just
Yeah,
I don't
showy.
care what he came in.
Yeah. What is this business that we're doing now?
I can't believe
I
Tony
can.
took you out with
He's an
Solana.
ingrate.
I can't believe he just did that. That is the bravest
You're not going to
thing
turn this
Tony has
broadcast team
ever
against
done.
each other. I'm going to tell you that right now. There may be a number of us, but we're strong. We're Panther strong, and we're not going to be broken apart by the likes of you who
Yep.
went to the school and is running around with a
Damn
UM,
right.
whatever the fuck that is on your head
Confirmed.
today.
Pause up.
It's such shitty producing.
instead of just shotgunning beers and betting the Rams. Oh, tell me, you got more reasons. You got more reasons. Take me there. Take me there. Just take me there. The Super Bowl, 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 the Super Bowl.
Anything you want, everything you need, you can get it all. Pat McAfee, writings on the wall. What's it gonna be? You'll see Marshall Falk and Mariucci. Anything you want, everything you need, you can get it all from Dominique. Writings on the wall. What's it gonna be? You can get it all. Kyle Brands Hemmings.
Going out west for the Super Bowl.
Going out west for the Super Bowl.
My team's not there, but I'm gonna show.
My team's also not there, but I'm gonna show.
Everybody knows it's bound to be.
Everybody knows it's bound to be
The greatest night for you and me. Come on now. Take me there. Take me there. Just take me there.
the Super Bowl, 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 the Super Bowl.
This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Tony has proclaimed, and I don't know who else has done this because this was a season of great expectations. Tony has proclaimed, and I don't know if he's first, the New York Knicks are cooked. Cooked. That you can watch Boston and Cleveland play and know that that team can't beat those two teams. And it's stark to see because when when the Knicks had Mitchell Robinson, they destroyed the Cleveland front court in a way that took me totally off guard. The changes between those two franchises when the Knicks have indeed elevated, to see Cleveland elevate that much more, where you're like, holy shit, Boston's having all sorts of trouble keeping up with Cleveland. Like, I don't know if it's just because Mobley's usage rate is something that they're working around more, but the New York Knicks have a better team than they've had. This team is better than the last two Brunson-led teams. Like, I'd rather have Karl Anthony Towns and Bridges in this kind of offense, but they're not as good as the top of their conference. That part's obvious. It's not just that they have some problems at home. Those two teams, Cleveland and Boston, look better than them.
Dan, the Knicks are officially cooked.
Confirmed.
Thank you. Here's the thing, right? They're 0-7 against the top teams between OKC and the two teams in the East being Boston and Cleveland. They got spanked by Boston, got spanked by Cleveland. The issue is this. They have an elite offense between Jalen Brunson, between Karl Anthony Towns, who's been playing amazing, Bridges, Hart. All these guys are very good on offense. Their problem has been defensively. Karl Anthony Towns might be the worst defender in the NBA. Wow. They're drop coveraging on everybody. No. Like, statistically, if you look up some of the advanced stats on Karl Anthony Towns, he is legitimately the worst defender in the NBA. So when you have guys like Porzingis, when you have guys like Mobley, just in the East, that are going to give him trouble, it's like this Knicks team was supposed to be built to beat those teams. They're, 38-19, 38-20, whatever they are right now, and they are not even close.
I don't know how many people do sort of the defensive metrics required to understand what Gobert was doing for Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota.
Dan.
That made that the best Minnesota team of my lifetime. Minnesota has fallen back, at least in part, because they can't pair those two guys together anymore, and they had to just get out from under salary. Like Minnesota, how often do you see that in today's day and age, where a team doesn't feel like it could keep its best team together in basketball because it can't, because Karl Anthony Towns got traded and all of us were like, we know he's a very nice player and that's exactly the kind of player that New York would want, but also that's a hell of a lot of money and I think he's a number 2.
Well, we just saw Dallas do it with Luka. So, like, that's kind of the most extreme example where they're like, I don't know if we can keep this team together with Luka going forward as our Supermax player. But when you look at some of the stuff that Gobert was taking off the plate of Karl Anthony Towns, he was able to kind of make him into a 3 where he didn't have to really worry about playing defense. Now, if you're the anchor of a defense like Hartenstein was a couple of years ago, where you let him walk and then you're waiting on Mitchell Robinson.
I love that you said it that way.
That's how you say it.
I know. I love that you did
it. Thank you. So you're hoping that Mitchell Robinson, who hasn't played in 2 seasons, is the lifeline that's going to save the defense that Tom Thibodeau like puts his hat on. It's like
Mitchell Robinson, who Mike Ryan calls trash.
I don't even remember the last time I thought about that guy.
You do remember the last time you thought about that guy.
It was probably about 2 years ago. 2 years ago. I haven't seen him since. Looks like the Warriors are playing well, though.
Oh, well, let's talk about this for a second, because I mentioned the other day that Steph Curry hasn't had somebody who goes and gets the dirty stuff free throws that Jimmy Butler does to slow the game down, and he just hasn't had that in his lifetime. And now you have Draymond Green guaranteeing a championship, and this is early for this one to happen. I don't know. Have you guys seen this? Stephen A. Smith has said the Jimmy Butler trade that he dismissed as a nothing trade, he has tweeted, I may have been wrong.
Whoa.
It's been only 5 or 6 games, only 5 or 6 games, and now he threatens to be wrong both times because he's willing to walk back based on the strength of 6 performances, because
they're 4-1 since acquiring.
And they're blowing people out. It's not
they just destroyed Dallas.
They're winning easily, but it's 5 or 6 games, and you're talking about they're getting into the 130s and 140s, and the game looks like it's being made easier for Steph. That's interesting to watch, right? Because I don't know if when you were watching the Warriors, if all of us to the eye could tell how or where Clay was slowing. I don't know where the prime of careers are anymore, because Ovechkin doing this at 39 is wildly confusing to me. 3 goals yesterday. He's going to break a record I never thought was broken. He's 39 years old. How is any of that possible?
He's going to do it in a season where he missed extended periods of time. It's unbelievable what Ovechkin's doing.
I can't understand how all of aging has changed in sports that makes it so that I would think that Jimmy Butler going in there at that age isn't going to have all that much left in the tank, but maybe 35 with all that mileage. Thibodeau mileage, just all the mileage on that body. Maybe there is something there that Golden State has not had as it tries the final furnace of fumes that there are on Draymond Green, on whatever all of that is, that Jimmy Butler can bring something to that team it hasn't had.
I think that's the part that you're hoping Draymond can somehow recapture a little bit of his old Draymond ways, because you've got Steph who now can kind of take a step back, let Jimmy take some of the offensive load off of him. The problem is they're a really small team. If you look around like who the Warriors have, it's like, how are you going to compete with the big teams out west that have Jokic, that have like a Gobert inside? There's just too much where the Warriors are like, all right, we're just going to play small ball, and Draymond hopefully can recapture something, but if not, Jimmy, get us a bucket.
When you're looking at the storylines in that sport and the young people are still vying for what has been LeBron and Steph's throne. You guys saw the stat that since 2020, LeBron is 0 for 21 on game-winning or game-tying shots at the end of the game. Since 2020, 0 for 21 at the end of games, because somewhere the oldest player in the league has to age, even as he's putting up 40 points and triple-doubles, and they're still really good. And Luka finally has a game yesterday where you're saying to yourself, okay, that looks like something resembling Luka, but you guys don't think that the Lakers can do anything against OKC, do you? You don't, like, when you're looking at OKC putting up a point differential of 13 points a game, nobody's looking at that team and saying, I don't trust them because I haven't seen them do it yet. They're too young, right?
Well, to be fair, I'm not looking at all. But what I will say is, over the last couple of years, as load management and the treatment of stars to avoid injury has continued to increase throughout the league, we've had pretty shocking results in the playoffs. You've seen teams not take the regular season so seriously, and it's made the playoffs a little bit more unpredictable because you can't account for what the max effort of these teams looks like. Golden State is a prime example of that because they're playing well right now because Jimmy feels like trying. I haven't really seen Jimmy try in quite some time.
Joy is back.
He grabbed the clipboard and started drawing plays in the huddle. Like, when was the last time he did that?
It's just a variable that it's hard to account for. You're just essentially guessing. Now, when they enter the playoffs and free throws are harder to come by, but the clips that I'm seeing of him, I mean, he's doing the pull-up J's in transition. Like, it looks like the way when Jimmy's game is really cooking, it looks like that. I don't know if it can sustain that, but he's one of the great playoff performers of our time. That was really well said.
One of the things that I think that we can agree on is that Steph Curry is going to make the game easier for him, and he will make the game easier for Steph Curry, and I would imagine would enjoy the lightened load of being the second best player on a team because he doesn't have to be used the same way. It's not quite as exhausting, and so I don't want to underestimate that he's playing with the greatest shooter any of us have ever seen who's distorted all of the basketball. And one of the reasons that they look so good is because, holy shit, Steph looks so good playing with that guy because of how you pair those two things. Where Jimmy, we all know he's a savant. He's not LeBron in terms of wherever brilliance is, but clearly he knows something about how to play basketball that is helpful to a lot of different people if they can withstand the furnace that his temper is.
I think the big difference is that Jimmy Butler accepts with understanding that he's the second best player on his new team, and he never could in Miami. In Miami, he's like, I'm the alpha dog. I'm not going to take a second fiddle to Tyler Hero. I'm Jimmy Butler. Now he's got Steph Curry. He's got no choice but to say, yep, he's better than me. I'm happy to do what I'm doing.
I want to ask you guys, though, because all of the star power in this sport is going to change. You've got, over the weekend, 2 injuries that are pretty substantive. The Philadelphia thing seems to be something that is going to lose Daryl Morey the ability to get another job. The way that blew out, where Joel Embiid is now, he's owed over the next 4 seasons $250 million, and it would appear that all of the pressures involved in getting him back out there are something that derailed his progress yet again. So the process has sort of ravaged this guy. And then you've got Wembanyama out for the season as well because of blood clots and the size of these human beings and what they're being asked to do around and during load management. Like, there are things involved here with what the wear and tear on the body is that make it so that we're like, where's Kawhi Leonard? I don't know where Kawhi Leonard is. Oh, the whole mystery doctor thing that made him change teams all over the place, because it is kind of we're in agreement now that the science has made it so whether you agree with load management or not, we now all understand that the athletes and their training staffs are all telling you these bodies need more conditioning than we're being allowed to have.
Well, with Joel, that has always been part of the criticism. You have a fragile body. You entered the league as someone with an injury risk. That was how they were evaluating him as a prospect. This is a risky proposition. So the fact that he's had a fragile career, when you apply that context, is really not a surprise. Where people get on Joel and where I think it's fair is on top of all these things that we're worried about you, your frame, your injury history, don't you want to put your body in the best possible position to withstand the beating of this sport? And optically and attitude-wise and by some reporting, he doesn't have that kind of commitment to his body.
Billy, why are you smiling?
Because I love the internet. Sometimes you just stumble across things. We're talking about the NBA. You're talking about Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, the Clippers, all of that jazz. Not the Utah Jazz, but you're talking about all that.
They're terrible.
And I found on this website called putabounty.com. In Spanish, it would be a totally different website. But it's called the Woj collection, and you can go on there and you can bid on things like the iPhone used to break Paul George Kawhi to LA Clippers news, the iPhone used to break NBA suspending season because of COVID iPhone. Many different credentials are here. Also, and I would never suggest that someone does this. Proceeds, by the way, go to St. Bonaventure. I would never suggest that someone does this, but his Disney ID is listed on there, his ESPN Disney ID badge. And when we were at Disney, when we were at Disney, that badge would get you free parking at the parks, which now is like
just flash it.
$35. Yeah, it was just like, show me the badge. Thank you. They'd say welcome home, which was always very welcoming. Say, welcome home, and you're like, oh, I'm home. Oh, we work here. And then like you'd go in and you'd save like $35. I have not done it since I've left, so I don't know if that is something that still works or not. I don't know if any of my coworkers here are bold enough to tell us that they've done this or not, but $250 could get you free parking at Disney for life.
I just need to understand more details. Is Woj selling some of his personal memorabilia in order to raise money as part of fundraising for his new venture as general manager of the Bonnies?
Yeah, you got it.
That is correct.
You understood it.
How
His
many
personal
of these,
effects.
How many of these are Darren Ravel going to scoop up?
Ooh.
Can we find out what some of the prices are on some of these
I can tell you all the
things?
prices. What do you want to know? The Paul George Kawhi to the Clippers phone is currently being offered for $350. You could buy all of Woj's stuff if you wanted to. NBA suspending the season due to COVID, $525 is the high right now.
That's a big phone.
Now, his 2023 NBA draft credential, also known as the Wemby draft, $200 right now.
What's dinner with Woj going
That
for?
just says limited available. Let's
Of
click it
course.
here. Oh, the offer price right now, it doesn't say, but the example is $2,000 to have dinner with Woj.
He's picking up the tab, right?
It's unclear.
Well, I think you're picking up the
Well,
tab if
okay,
it's
hold-
$2,000.
Actually, well, hold
Can
on
you
a
gift
second.
this? Can you gift this? We should get that for Amin.
Hold on a second, because all of these have offer prices. So, like his 2024 NBA draft credential, which many of you might say, 2024 NBA draft credential. Why would I want that? Well, because that was Woj's final draft. Wow. So this is a piece of basketball history here, and the clearance levels that he had were FLV 2 and 4. So I think we all know what that means. Now, here is the offer. It's suggesting $2,000 if you want to make an offer. However, the high offer right now is $500, so we haven't reached it. There's 8 days left if you guys want to support the Bonnies.
How do you verify what the phone is, though? Is there a text on there
Phone?
saying, like, Paul George, is it done?
It's
Is
a
there, like...
dangerous game.
So you're saying that someone would be lying about the iPhone used for the 2023
I'm
draft
not lying.
lottery?
I'm just saying, how do you verify
That
it?
was the
It's
Wemby
not-
draft.
It's not,
I'm
saying
it's not
that.
me. I'm
Yeah.
not. You're saying that?
Yeah.
Don't
Oh, yeah.
say that.
Okay, hold on a
Can't
second.
verify
Don't
that.
do that.
Now, here's a phone that you might want. The iPhone used for farewell tweet and final NBA draft. $500 for that one right now. That is that's the high. Ooh, you can also get a video call with Woj. There's lots of treasures on here, lots of personal effects you might want. But again, the ESPN badge
All right. Well,
might be free
are
parking for
any of the
life.
personal effects as good as the one that Greg Cody brought in today? Because I will tell you that last week I thought one of the show highlights was Chris Cody going into the back row and being someone who maniacally squeezed juice until he got orange juice, almost half a glass, heroically. Today, his father has brought in, and we famously cut his hair here months ago. He didn't like the haircut. We got it professionally cut. One of Tony's friends
My
came
barber.
in here.
My
cut-
personal
and cut
barber,
it.
Dan.
I like the haircut.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, it was
No,
good.
You didn't.
I just didn't like having to borrow $20 to tip the guy, you know.
You
that
didn't
kind of
like
thing.
the haircut that much. Your wife didn't like the haircut that much. It's okay. It was a
Erlene?
good haircut, but you didn't like that it was that close. Yes, Erlene. That is correct.
Didn't like the haircut. It was a good haircut.
It was
You
a
look
good
20
haircut.
years younger.
Yes,
you.
but Greg Cody has brought in today, and I did not know that this was something that he had in his arsenal, a personal haircut kit. And so are we going to cut his hair with his personal haircut kit to see if his haircut, if he can do this? He's scared. He's a little bit proud of his hair, and he's scared of going home to Orlean with a haircut that looks ridiculous. Are we going to try to do this live?
Well, we need a volunteer.
What do you need?
I mean, I need someone who is going to volunteer. I can't do it myself.
Right, but who would you like? Would you like to select whoever it is going to do this?
I would like to a volunteer from anyone in the studio who has been a barber.
Look around the room, like just
Or-
based off our
Can
look.
I see the kit?
Greg, this is
Can
one
I
of the
see-
worst ideas yet. Do
Can I
not
see the
do
kit?
this.
No,
Billy,
someone
don't-
who has
This
been
ends
a
with
barber
Dan
Billy,
shaving your
Billy,
head.
support.
or
would you-
has hairstylist experience.
Would you please support Greg Cody on a Greg Cody Monday? I don't need you
Sure.
saying this being the spot where you decide that you're going to say no.
There's long-term implications here. When Stugotz
Not
shaved
that
his head,
long-term.
it took, well, that's true. lifelong for some.
Okay, so this is just all this is just. I mean, it's not. I thought it was going to be something other than a. This is just something.
What do you think it was going to be?
Oh, I don't know. But
You think someone would pop out of there like, "Hello, I'm here to cut a hair"?
No, I just thought that it's a self-shaving kit. You could do this for yourself. It's supposed to be something that you're doing for yourself.
No, it's
not
impossible to do it yourself.
Well, hold on a
because then
second.
you'd be going like this.
Hold
in
on
the
a
back
second.
here.
I think I can help you, Greg, because Roy has told us that he shaves his own head. Roy gives himself his
Yeah, I
own
vote
haircuts. So Roy's used this equipment before.
Yeah, but I shaved my head. He's not going to want a bald head.
Well, he didn't say.
No, I want to start with a 1 or a 2 on the side and work
That's a
up.
lot, by the way.
What is?
1 is what I have.
one
on the
is
side,
really
which is-
short.
Which
Okay,
is this.
Start with a 2 or a 3.
A little higher.
And then remember, fade is the word you used.
The
Dad.
fade.
Fade it up.
I need a fade
You
expert.
want somebody to give you a fade?
Tight fade.
I'll call my boy Lucas. We'll bring him back.
All right, we're going to
Isn't
do
that what
this
I
or
want, a
not. I
fade?
need the payoff now.
No.
Now somebody's got to do this. We got to get somebody back there. We can't bring this up as content, have the kid out here, and then just bail on it. Now we've got to do it.
The whole kit and caboodle.
We're in too deep. I did also want to say to Greg Cody, who does do
Stop fiddling. Thank you.
a lot of good work around here just to get promotion for his podcast. The Greg Cody Show featuring Greg Cody
Right.
has
It's a fine.
a lot of nostalgia in it. And this week, because they do nothing better than self-involvement, they are reviewing the top 100 guests in show history. I'm stunned to hear that they've had 100 guests.
Sure. We've had like 138. So if you don't make the top 100, that's on you, not me.
You want the bottom 38?
But
That's the good stuff.
That's going to
actually.
be on the next episode. We're previewing it a little. We talk about it a little.
Wouldn't it
on
be
this
easier
episode.
to see who didn't make the cut than to see who did? You're doing the top 100 guests in the history
Yeah.
of the Greg Cody Show featuring Greg Cody.
Outside looking in.
We want when Hal Habib comes on to be like, now joining us, the 82nd most popular guest in show history, Hal Habib.
How did you rank these? Like personal feelings?
We actually did it mathematically. Christopher and I and Yeti each had a ballot of 138 names, and beside each name we put 5, 3, or 1. 1 is somebody that we don't even remember him being on the show. 3 is somebody we're sort of waffling. 5, big star.
Why did you just do 1, 2, 3?
I'm going to be honest. I voted. Everyone in here has been on the show. A lot of 3s in this room.
I was gonna.
A lot of 3s.
I was
We have
gonna
against
ask
even numbers.
If it was like, if you're on the show, is that a guest or you're just like, nah, you're friends with the show, so that doesn't count
I
as a
want to
guest.
cover the math of what it is that we're talking about here, okay? In the history of the show, he has had 138 guests. So all he's doing here is eliminating 38 of the guests.
Correct.
Only 38 are being eliminated. So there are a lot of people making the late cut here who probably weren't very good, unless you think that Greg Cody and his son and Yeti, would you please stop opening that loudly, unless you think that
It works.
unless you think that they have batted 100 out of 138 on great guests.
Well, batting 100's bad.
Well, here's
100 out of 138 is not batting 100.
I was told we were all 3s in this room, which is not great.
Oh no, that's
But all the 3s are making it.
that's proprietary information.
All
first
the
of
all the 3s are making it. What do you mean it's
No.
proprietary information? The podcast is out.
No,
That's next week's episode.
We're previewing the top.
You
one.
broke the news. You leaked it.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
Furman's going to be pissed.
No, Furman's not on it.
Confirming.
Everybody,
It's a very abrupt trail.
everybody who makes the list, there's a reason for it.
That was a hastily produced. The confirmand needed more echo. How do you not hear that confirmand needs to be bassier?
Confirming.
How do you not hear that?
Keep going. The trail should still
How
be
do
on.
you hear that so poorly that you don't understand how much funnier confirmand would be if it echoed for 9 seconds?
Confirming.
No, that's not good enough.
Ethan's voice only gets so deep.
How do we not have somebody in the other room who can give us the voice we need
Yes.
to put a little funny in this?
Confirming.
No, it's got to be basso profundo.
Do you know how much better, Roy? Roy, show them how it's done, please. Go into the other room. Don't do it now. Don't do it live. I will not put the pressure on you now. Close the segment. Go into the other room and make a better confirming than that using a voice that is funnier than the one
I
that
want a
Ethan's
15
using.
second trail.
And cut Greg's hair while you're at it.
Somebody else help me with the cutting of Greg Cody's hair. Greg, the top guest in show history, was it tough to come by? Who was number one?
We haven't determined the list yet.
I can reveal. We voted. There were about 20 people that got consensus 5s from all of us. So the top 20 all got consensus 5s. So we're gonna have to order those, and that will be revealed this week.
Is this just on the podcast, or does this include when we had like the fortune teller or whatever on the 24-hour marathon?
This includes any appearance. If you send in a video clip to us, if we played you on the show, if we've hyped you in any kind of description, then yes. Like we had Lionel Messi on.
Yeah, he was on briefly.
Well, it was like his translator. Like we translated something Messi said, and
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But
Excellent.
that's, I think he got 1s and 3s. I'm not sure if.
Okay, but again, some 1s and 3s are going to
5
make the
is
list
good?
because
A
you're
couple?
they're only eliminating 38 though. So there is somebody who's going to make the top 100 who got a 1 as
I don't think Charlie Chaplin's gonna make it. We had a guy named Charlie Chaplin.
You know
on.
what? I voted him a 5. I don't know about the rest of you. He was great.
We also had a Greg Cody on.
And
a guy named Greg Cody.
Another 5? Yes. We also had a Greg Lobo.
We also had a Snuggler. Anyway.
Well, hold on a second. How are you guys revealing this? Just all on one episode, or you
Yes. Next week's episode, not the
So,
one that
a
came out
big one.
today.
I've told him we should do 10 at a time.
Yeah,
like 10 a
stretch
week.
it out.
100 through 91, that type thing.
That's open to debate.
Okay, it's a big one.
we have till Sunday to decide if you want to make this last one episode or 10.
That's correct.
As with all of the great art made throughout history, there will be much eternal debate about who should have been number 1.
Confirming.
And how high Gary the Bag got up on the list of the guests in the history of the
Now,
Greg
that's a big
Cody
one.
Show.
Will he make it?
Featuring Greg Cody. Have any of you watched the
But thank you.
Wait, who was on this week?
This week we dive inside. There was a bachelor party within my family. Not to name anyone who might be getting married, like my younger son Michael. So we talk about the bachelor party.
Good tease.
I reveal number 20 in my new top 20 list of all-time greatest herbs.
Herb of the week.
Herb of the week. So number 20.
You can
is
reveal who
revealed.
number 20 was.
Nah, I don't want to.
Herb Dean?
Okay, you got to
No,
get
you
it.
gotta
Whoa,
listen.
relax.
You got to
Herb
get
Williams.
it over.
You have
Greg
2
Cody
countdowns
Show
at the same
featuring
time?
Greg Cody.
Rosemary.
No, it's not
next
rosemary.
next week's countdown
Time.
is the 100 guests. This week's is the
Yeah, but he only gives us 1 herb a week.
It
Right.
was both to stop you and also submit a nominee.
20 favorite herbs.
Right. Yeah.
Come on, give him number 20. It'll be a nice teaser for next week.
No, I don't want to do it.
You're only
it's
by number
embargoed.
20?
It's
started
embargoed.
I'm starting it.
He's starting it.
So
That
next
means
week's
only-
episode is the 100 best guess and the number 19th herb.
Yes,
Yes.
that's correct. Yeah.
Just so you know, the Greg Cody Show featuring Greg Cody
Great show.
Yeah. By the way, second thoughts on this.
on the buzz
It's
cut.
a buzzer for the audio
For
audience.
the podcast
I
audience.
mean,
Yeah, first of all, it says
unbelievable.
oil blades before using. I have no oil.
Greg,
Second,
Greg, why did you bring this in if we weren't going to do it? Like, what's the point
you're
of
the
doing?
one who unhoused it from the box.
What?
But you
Politically
brought
correct.
it in. You brought it in and you put it in on the desk, and I thought we were going to do
The
something.
producer told me to bring the box in. Did
But
I
so
open
we-
it? Did I suggest we do anything with it? I didn't know. I didn't know whether someone would volunteer to touch my head. And quite
Whoa.
frankly, now I look at this, and the biggest, whatever you call these things, the biggest one is 1 inch. Okay, it's 1/8 inch, 1/4, 3/8, 1/2, 5/8, 3/4, 7/8, and 1 inch. So the biggest is 1 inch. So I can't use this.
Well, 1 inch is long for the
long,
side,
Dad.
It is.
For the side, yeah.
I thought,
An
Tony,
inch?
you said you had a
That's
one.
a
No,
one. It's a
No, that's
one.
the
That's
number.
The one
It's
doesn't
the
represent
lowest
That's not
number.
1 inch.
Yeah.
1 is like the shortest setting on that.
Oh, okay. So 1 is the longest.
Yeah.
I think the way you do this
I
is you
missed up.
work lowest number to highest number when you're doing it. So,
Okay.
like, you start
Yeah.
shaving at like 1/8 of an inch, and then you work your way up to 1.
I totally misread this.
What are you? He's putting it up against his
Be
face
careful.
for the audio.
You didn't
audience.
oil that.
Yeah,
I
be
know.
careful. Have
Yeah.
you guys seen the We Beat the Dream Team documentary on
I've heard of
Max?
it, and I've heard good things.
Let me just tell you some of the good things because I'm a little bit stunned that in 2025 we still eat up the Michael Jordan mythology, okay? So The We Beat the Dream Team documentary reveals a handful of things, including Coach K alleging that Chuck Daly purposely threw the scrimmage where the college kids beat the greatest team there's ever been, Magic and Michael. Among the revelations in this is that Michael and Magic were on the bench during this game when it happened. But one of the things that was mentioned that continues to improve the mythology of Michael Jordan, even as LeBron James is still putting up 40 points sometimes as a 40-year-old.
That breathing.
Sounds like there's an oscillating fan in the studio.
He got winded just giving those fractions. It was just
Christ,
1/8, 7/8, 6/8. He got tired getting to about 4 5/8. He just got tired.
The
And
timing.
5/8,
Every time Dan finished the sentence,
he's been breathing heavy since then. It was just listing the eighths that got him tired. Do you realize how out of shape you have to be to get winded just listing 8 fractions?
I'm not winded. Roy told me to keep the mic close to my mouth, which is what I'm doing. I'm doing a little thing called breathing. It's a big part of life. And so what's the alternative? You want me to hold my breath for the rest of the show?
I don't, but when I'm talking about Michael Jordan and suffocating somebody, Allen Houston talked about the next day after they beat Michael Jordan. Jamal Mashburn tells this story. He says Michael Jordan comes out and says he's not going to get his hands over his shoulders today for a shot. Allen Houston is going to come out here, and he's not going to get his hands over his shoulders. And Jamal Mashburn is looking at us at the camera. He's like, this is the day I questioned whether I could be a pro. Allen Houston never got his hands over his shoulders in the next practice I was watching. And so they continue to create the mythology around Michael Jordan, even while telling you a bunch of college kids beat him.
So I don't have to see it anymore.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Did I ruin it for everybody?
I'll get around to it. I still have to watch Conclave.
Well, you recommended something. I will tell you something I have not done before that arrived the other day at 56 years old. It's not a life or a feeling that I've had in my life at Saturday morning at 7 a.m. My dark princess of a wife decides Nosferatu is what she wants to watch, an artistic masterpiece, like just beautifully romantic and haunting and totally creepy.
Did you like it?
Yes, I did. Well, yeah, I liked it, but I would say I like it just because you're being transported to a different, like just a weird time with how it is that they're doing all darkness.
Well, that's how Robert Eggers gets down in terms of being able to transport you to another world. No one really wraps you in it quite like he does.
The romance of it, though, and I don't think, Greg Cody, when's the last time you saw a movie of any kind? It's just aggressive. 7 a.m. on a Saturday is aggressive to welcome that kind of gold.
Yeah, that means
kind
you
of
saw
cold
Count
into your life.
Orlok's dick around 7:45.
Yeah.
It's too early to see Count Orlok's dick.
Have you read anything, though, about it's a Sarsgaard that does the role of Orlok, and you would never know it from
this one's Bill
watching. But the voice work on that and the lengths that he went to personify evil with his voice was an actor as an artist really trying to get something right in the name of like what I think most people would just dismiss as a vampire movie.
What did you think of the mustache?
No facial hair.
It kind of boils down to, did you like the mustache or not? For a lot of folks. And most people don't like the mustache. But the mustache, look, in Bram Stoker's Dracula has a mustache. That's referenced to a couple of times. If you want to be a nobleman from the 1600s, any respectable one had a mustache. But a lot of people could not look past this.
So did Roncula.
You guys think that I don't think of Dracula or vampires as having mustaches.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't believe anybody
does. If you were a
does.
nobleman in the 1600s and you'd been dead for a while, you don't get around to shaving. Yeah. You had a mustache. It's authentic. That's what Robert Eggers does, man. This is what he does. Although there isn't a body of water between Germany and Transylvania. So for all the authenticity about Bobby Eggs, I mean, that's a really long, drawn-out way to get to Germany.
Have any of you watched horror at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning?
No,
I think I watched a
can't do
coffee
it.
table at that time.
Doesn't fit. It's not a fit. You gotta coordinate the movie style with the time of day.
Which is love versus lust.
I get enough horror at 7 a.m. on Saturday from how hungover I am.
That's Looney Tunes time, honestly.
Yeah.
None of you are doing that with children? Greg Cody, I wanted to ask you, because you're our football expert around here, when the Bengals, a notoriously cheap franchise, historically cheap, laughingstock NFL cheap franchise before Joe Burrow, that was perfectly happy just making money every season as a mom and pop shop that was reputed in NFL circles as not caring about winning the way the other spenders want to spend. They are faced and say they're going to sign Hendrickson, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase, all of them. Now, that would be signing everybody. Higgins was hurt this year. But that would be signing everybody from a team that wasn't good enough to make the playoffs. And that'd be that the amount of money that it would take to keep all of those players, now that you've had to give Joe Burrow money, the finances of all of that work how? Because while it's very nice to say you will keep all of the players and you can tag Higgins as well, I don't see how you can have those 4 players and then have other players when Jamar Chase is going to want $40 million a year. And now you're paying Burrow and Jamar Chase, and now you've got to pay all these other guys. Well, your defense was already bad last year in a way that it didn't matter how good Chase and Burrow were.
They've addressed the defense. Al Golden.
That's true. Al Golden, by the way, put on a few LBs.
Okay.
I don't think that's necessary.
Since he's been at UM. I'm just saying, he looks fine.
What are you doing?
I'm just making a comment.
Haven't we all?
Just making a comment.
It's unnecessary.
We established he's got early onset paterno.
He's a public figure.
How is this your comment when I ask you for your football expertise? Al Golden has put on a few LBs since being at my
the NFL did increase its spending limit by, $22 million or something. That'll help. They have to sign Hendrickson and Jamar Chase. To me, T. Higgins is sort of the odd man out here. I would hate to think that because they sign these guys, it means they're going to have to deplete the roster elsewhere. But in the AFC, when you have Joe Burrow, you're a contender. When you have a healthy Joe Burrow, but it's a much tougher conference than the NFC, and at best they're the 3rd or 4th team in the conference, so they're in a tough situation. But based on their penurious history, I give them credit just for the public intent of re-signing.
Well, you're sort of obligated to, right? Because once you've gotten to the situation where you have the expectations of being a contender because of who your quarterback is, you have to do the things to keep your quarterback happy. My question to you is, as we talk about this, though, given that so many people are salary cap experts now, even though none of us are salary cap experts, even though we're obsessed with all of the money, I'm just asking you this generally. Are there a lot of teams that that didn't make the playoffs that you got to pay all 4 of their guys? That a team that hasn't made the playoffs, when what you got from that team last year was the rarest of things, the great quarterback play who doesn't make the playoffs, the healthy quarterback play that is great and also not great enough to make the playoffs because of how they started. When you're being fiscally responsible, when you have to win in the margins, because even if they're advancing $20 million on the salary cap, you have to be better at the salary cap than other teams. Paying the 4 guys is what anybody would do. What hurts is you have to get rid of somebody in order to have the rest of the team, because the thing that's broken about the Bengals from where I'm standing is architecturally, if you get that season healthy from Burrow, you cannot fail to make the playoffs. Like you're broken in a way that doesn't portend well for your future when Burrow was having all the great games and you were still losing when he put up 30.
Right. And you also can't shortchange the offensive line so that all of a sudden Joe Burrow is at risk. It's really a no-win situation in that you can't sign all 4 of those guys and do right by the rest of the roster. That's why I don't see how they can sign Higgins. To me,
don't you just franchise him? Does it? He just gets a tag.
Yeah, but it's still tagging him gives him a high number. You get some value there with the tag, but you're just kicking that can.
Burrow's saying the same thing. He's saying there's all sorts of stuff I can do with signing bonuses. There's all sorts of stuff I can do for cap relief.
Yeah, that's what Philadelphia has done. They've made an artwork of finagling the system legally to do all that.
Patriots did that for a very long time.
Where did you get that Al Golden has put on a lot of weight?
He looks good.
He honestly looks better than when he was running around the sidelines in a suit.
I agree.
Okay.
Look at him. He doesn't look big there.
He's a little cheeky.
Cheeky.
He's always had those, like that rosacea.
Yeah, he looks pretty good. some time at the Al Golden Corral, that guy, But look, I haven't missed a meal either. I mean,
aren't you a journalist? How could you get that wrong? How could you only analysis of the Bengals be that and you get it wrong?
I've been told by sources.